screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. Hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet, eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. This game has long been sussed by those who laid the way for the rest of us, and we are so lucky that it is so. My guest tonight on Rogueways is the one and only bubblegum chewer extraordinaire, longtime conspiracy rabbit hole digger, current event analysis provider, and the man of great acclaim and following, RussianVids. Welcome to Rogueways.
Wow, Lindsay, I appreciate it. That was pretty good. That
Thank
was
you.
very good, actually. The best intro I ever received.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy for that.
Yeah,
well, before we jump in tonight, let me remind everyone that you can find a lot more content from me on my site, rogueways.org. All kinds of free goodies there. If you're into tarot or you're looking for some guidance on that sort of level of life, then you can grab a tarot reading from me in that same spot, rogueways.org. You can buy my book right now from me for a discount. It's $15 on Amazon plus shipping plus tax, or you can just get it from me for $15 flat, shipped anywhere in the United States to you. And you can do that by donating $15 to my PayPal at paypal.me/Corey.Sharman. And if you would like to support me on Subscribestar, which is my favorite way to get support, I love the super chats. I love the donations to PayPal and all the different ways that people support the show. But Subscribestar is my favorite because I get to share even more content with you there, like the audiobook version of Sine Curve of Aeons, soon to be also the audiobook version of the sequel, which I am almost done with. I have half a chapter left to write and then some editing, and then it should be good to go. So very excited about that. That's my big news for today. That's all on my Subscribestar though, and more. There's more videos, more interviews, all kinds of stuff there. So if you want to subscribe there, that is the best way to get more and to support me. There's also a $1 level where you don't get any more access to anything, but if you're someone who just wants to kick a little love my way because you've been a Rogueways fan for a while but you can't really afford much or whatever, then there's that level for you too, which I also greatly appreciate. And finally, the podcast is back on any podcast app. You can listen to all the shows if you don't want to watch our faces or sit through YouTube videos. So that's available for you, Rogueways, on any podcast app. And finally, RussianVids. I like to ask a pointless question of the episode, and I figured I would ask you which RussianVids are the best RussianVids for non-Russians to watch and why.
Wow. So
it's like the woodchuck question.
Yeah, that was like, wow. I was like, that hit me kind of. You kind of got me there.
Yeah, you stumped.
You would say Lindsay, my favorite videos on my channel. I would say my video titled "Freemasons: The Architects of Deception." Let me think what else here. I got a 4-hour flat presentation, flat Earth documentary. Those are my two top ones that I would recommend. I'm trying to think. I have so many videos. Literally, I have a library of videos not currently on my channel from years ago that I need to re-upload from all my down channels, but I'm trying to think about any other ones. But those two really hit the core as far as the two that I would really recommend.
They're like the two that would get to the heart of everything as well, like Flat Earth and Freemasonry.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is one is 4 hours. The Flat Earth one is 4 hours. The Freemason one on Freemasonry is 3.5, I believe. So yeah, it goes into great detail.
That's pretty awesome. I want to watch those. That's interesting too to think about that you have even more videos than are on your channel because of all of the times that you have been scrubbed from YouTube.
Yeah, I have videos that I look at, like people send me that years ago my computer was down at one point, that I lost some videos. People send me. I'm like, I totally forgot even covering this. I'm like watching it for the first time. I was like, that's me talking, but wow, it's like I forgot to even cover this topic. But of course, it comes back to me once I see it, but it's like something I totally forgot about. Seeing it again, it's pretty crazy.
Wow. I can't even imagine having produced so much content that you don't even remember necessarily like doing it. That's amazing.
Yeah. And the thing is, I have such a good memory too. I pride myself on having a good memory, but I don't remember making that particular video, but yeah, which is kind of fun. Very funny, actually.
It's like you can re-educate yourself with your own work over and over again.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, and I'm not going to it's like I'm kind of being hard on myself. Sometimes I look at it, it's like, the human mind can only hold so much information.
Yeah,
And over the years, I've researched so much stuff. It's like the information is pouring out of my brain, and it's hard to remember everything, and
totally.
sometimes to even put it in structure because there's just so much information. I'll do like a live stream or podcast or do a video, and I'll like look at like my library of images. Oh, I should have mentioned this, or I should have went in this direction too because this was vital. But there's just so much to cover. It's endless.
Right. Yes, you could do this literally forever. I've had people be like, "Aren't you worried that you're going to run out of like people to talk to or subjects to talk about?" And I'm like, "No." Cuz we're
Yeah.
alive and this is life and it like never ends and there's always more connections and rabbit holes and I don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And I always cover certain things. It needs to be repeated on certain topics because that's the foundation of what we speak on. So specifically to a new audience, new viewers, I do have to go over a lot of things. It's a bit repetitive on some things, but you cannot bypass it. You cannot skip it. If you do, you're gonna be lost, type of thing. So you got to go over the basics, the foundations of many things.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as a teacher as well. That's just good teaching practice that you at least are touching on some of the basics to see. And then if people are like, what the hell are you talking about? I have no idea what's
Yeah.
going on, then you can go a little deeper into that area. Or if they don't, you can like keep going and
Well, it's
yeah,
like
it's just a
this.
good tactic.
It's like this. Imagine you're watching a TV series and you're on the say 33rd episode, for example, and you missed the prior ones, and you're lost. So you got to definitely rehash and go over the foundation of many things for sure.
Yeah, and it's easier for people too when you're like, remember this, 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 and this. They're like, oh yeah, that's where we're going with this, and they have something to sort of attach the other newer information to when you
Yeah.
get there. So all
Yeah.
around, it's a good idea.
Yeah, and the key thing is I'm getting new subscribers all the time,
Right.
and they're asking the very basic questions, and I don't neglect them. I don't neglect the new viewers, so I definitely
That's very sweet.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. You got to do it. Sometimes, of course, some of the longtime listeners are like, "Oh, we already covered that." Yeah, but I explain them. I said, "Yes, you have," but I get a lot. We want to wake up as many people as possible. We have to always think about that and consider new people are joining in all the time.
Right. I love that.
Yes.
Well, I want to go back in time a bit and ask you where you came from in life and what it was like being a tiny Russian vids.
Yeah, that's very cute. That's very cute. Here's the thing: is even going back before I even got into Tiny Russian Vids, was this is my background, and people always ask me, "Why are you called Russian Vids? You have a perfect English, no accent, you
Yeah.
speak perfect American English." I'm like, well, my parents were immigrants from Russia. My dad's
Oh,
from Siberia. He
Siberia.
at a certain point, he basically the family escaped through Siberia, through China. I lived in China for 10 years.
Wow.
Went to South America, to Paraguay, then worked their way up to Sacramento, California.
Wow.
It was too hot for him because being in, even Paraguay is too hot, but being in Sacramento was really hot.
Yeah.
So, basically, it was recommend they move to a cooler climate, and that climate was the San Francisco Bay Area, where my parents ended up, and that's where I was basically born. So, to move on beyond that, as far as how mini Russian vids ended up in the United States, and I was born, and my dad was always like anti-TV. He knows about communism and the suppression. So
Yeah.
I
And the
learned that from my dad,
propaganda.
that aspect. And then, I believe, in a creator, and I believe we all obtain certain traits. And one of my traits was I just didn't give a damn about what other people think. I never try to fit in. I never try to like make friends. However things panned out when I met people in school, it just worked out that way. If I made a friend, if I didn't, I wasn't looking for acceptance with a lot of people. So when you're that way, you're not, you're more independent.
It's
And I think
harder to
people should be
control
that way
you.
in general.
Yeah.
I think people should be that way in general. When you need people more, you're gonna compromise yourself because of your
Yes.
need,
Yeah.
and that's one thing I believe we do need a small circle
Yeah.
of people around us. We all need that support, but we shouldn't rely on this. Oh, like how many friends do I have? It's always I always looked at things as quality over quantity, and even in the case of, hey, if you don't have any quality friends around you, best not to have any, type of thing. So I
Yeah.
was never worried about being accepted. Like I said, when I went to school, all the kids would wear like the Spuds McKenzie shirts, they would follow every fashion trend. I just did my own thing. I was almost, it's awkward for me to even like, if like everybody's wearing the same thing, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to be a follower. I was never the follower type. So that gets big into what I'm doing now with truth, is
Definitely.
seeing things for what it is and not letting any kind of manipulation, social manipulation, peer pressure dictate how I see things.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you can really see how every single aspect of what you just laid out kind of led into, like you said, exactly what you're doing, what you've done, um, in
Yeah.
so many ways. So, like, and I love what you're saying about not needing other people necessarily. And it's not this like, because I have the exact same attitude, and I've had some people be like, well, you're, selfish and heartless. And I'm like, no, I deeply love the people who I'm close with. And I can even like understand sacrifice and compromise at some level, but compromise is like a dirty word to me, because I'm like, there's always going to be a way where you and I both get our needs met, and nobody has to compromise their needs or compromise what, their values in order to get that. There's always going to be that way that we can do that. So I kind of like hate that word. And I
Yeah.
definitely think that, like you said, makes you less controllable. If you are willing to sacrifice yourself and compromise yourself for other people's needs, then it's going to be easier to manipulate you.
Yeah, the only one thing would be, I would say, is like in a relationship, you always got to compromise. But as far as friends, family, I always say this to people. You could pick your friends, but you can't pick your family, that type of thing. And but yeah, there's one. The only exception is, and is maybe in a relationship where, for example, I've seen people, one Democrat, one Republican, and in our case, and I know you as well, Lindsay, is we're none of the above.
Right.
So yeah, it's just but when it comes to truth, definitely there's definitely a no compromise as far as that's concerned, for sure.
And it's,
But as far as what restaurant, you got to be
yeah,
a little compromise type of thing, but
true.
minor things. But the
Right.
big scheme of things, definitely got to be on the same page.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you come from immigrants and from people who actually know what real communism and socialism is like,
Yes,
because I think there's
absolutely.
this whole trend, and I was a victim of it. I shouldn't say a victim of it. I chose it, but I was stupid enough to choose it, where I was once fighting for communist revolution in the United States, and now I'm like, wow, like what,
Yeah,
like that idea and what I really thought could be and would be the best for everyone is like so far from the truth. And I find that most people who came from situations where that was what was going on abhor it, and they are openly, like, how could you even think that this would be good? And so it's interesting, I think, to get that perspective from an immigrants who also know what that's like.
yeah, that's very interesting. And here's the big thing, Lindsay, is it's I always say this. When you think you know it all, that's when you stop learning. And with new information, we can come to new conclusions. So I look at it as a huge thing that you can change your core beliefs. And I actually look at that as a very a powerful statement of who you are.
Thank
That
you.
you can say, hey, I was down this path, but it wasn't the right path, and it's a huge thing to deviate from that path. But I'm going to do it because I see it's the right thing to do. So it's like I
Cheers.
congratulate you for doing that, because a lot of
Thank you.
people are like the ego thing. Nope, I chose this path. I
Yeah.
was pushing it to all my friends, all my peers, how this is really important, and now it's like if you deviate, like wow. So no, I'm like no. If you found out like, hey, this was the wrong path, and I found a new way, that's all power to you, and that's exactly what people should do.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like it's a good example to other people too of like it's not saying anything bad about you. In fact, it's saying only good things about you if you can take new information and change your mind with that information.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I do with my video presentations, getting people to get away from the mainstream media, getting away from every aspect, from fluoride, toothpaste, high fructose corn syrup sodas, even diet sodas with aspartame, every which way. Change your life in every aspect, not just one, in every aspect that they're pushing. I always say this, Lindsay, and everybody else listening in, whatever they're pushing, go in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Whatever direction the crowd's going, the correct one is going the opposite. So
Yeah.
that's my philosophy on life, and the people that run this world, and doing everything that benefits them and try to wrap it in a package to make it seem like it's benefiting us when it doesn't.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, so how did you transition from sort of childhood and growing up in San Francisco area to whatever came next? Did you run out into the world screaming the truth, or was there some other process that went on?
Well, it's very interesting, and I've said this many times for people that follow my channel is when I was very young, 5 years old, I used to watch, I should say, the Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan debate on TV at a very early age. I can see these people were plastic. I didn't have the words for it. I couldn't articulate it, but I saw that this was like actors, on a stage. Over the years, oh yeah, they have scriptwriters. They're like literally telling us they have scriptwriters because they're really reading off scripts. It's not their words. When it really comes down to it, they're just puppets on the world stage when it comes down to it. So, yeah, that's like an very early aspect of it. Also, not believing in the moon landing, seeing things in the news as time goes on, things that didn't make sense. For example, like moving, still early age. What else? What was I, 15 or 16, when the Rodney King beatings happened, and I saw things like, for example, Reginald Denny. We knew he really got beat up. There's no doubt about that. But the guy that showed up in the courtroom, I'm like, wait a second, that's not the same guy. This guy's shorter. He's like has a rounder face, different complexion. Everything about him. Like, this is not even the same guy.
Wow.
And I knew that back then.
Wow.
And again, I didn't know how far the deception went as far as that whole thing. And I'll just say it right now, is with the Rodney King incident. These are things that are put in play. What happened on that day, supposedly March 3rd, and it's very important when it comes to Freemasonry, March being the third month of the year, the third day, that's the 33.
Yeah.
Here's the thing is that no one, at the time I made a video, no one was covering, no one looked at closely because maybe I should back up a little bit because it goes deeper with me covering a lot of events. When I was covering a lot of current hoaxes and psyops like Sandy Hook, the Boston bombing, 9/11, of course, all these events. And I said to myself, they're faking these events. We know they're faking things in the past or manipulating things in the past. So that got me back to Rodney King, looking at things like Rodney King, the OJ case. So when it comes to Rodney King, what I did was I slowed down the video. And when you saw supposedly Rodney King getting beat up in the streets, it's very hard to do, but you have to really slow it down frame by frame. But I got the perfect vantage point to look at so-called Rodney King. It's not Rodney King. It's a guy with longer, straight hair with the beard. Basically, as crazy it might sound, people are going to say, wow, it looks more like a Caucasian man.
Wow.
It's not Rodney King. And here's the thing is, it gets really complex. You had the police officer named Stacy Kuhn, and this is like a play on names they love to do throughout history with a lot of their sites. They love a play on names. And anyway, Stacy Kuhn, which is Kuhn being a very derogatory, racist term towards black people.
Right.
That's the duality aspect with the white cop beating supposedly a black man. Here's the big issue. I'm telling people the words, but they have to see it with my video presentation, where the man that supposedly shows up, on all these photos, basically the next day or the day after, it does not match the man on the street with straight hair to the man that has braids in his hair. And here's the big thing is, even that man that supposedly got beat up is not actually Rodney King either. Wow. So this is how deep it goes. And the thing is, people really need to see the video presentation. They're hearing this like, oh, this is absolutely insane. But once you see it with your own eyes in my video presentation, you can see, yeah, that man in the street doesn't match the man that got beat up with the braids. And the man that is Rodney King, he never got beat up. So he's just an actor on the world stage. But of course, through all this, you have real riots. You have real fires. This is order out of chaos and the huge divide, splitting the country 50-50. And this is how the few, control the many, is keeping us all fighting and keeping the eyes off those that rule. And this is a huge aspect of this whole deal with Rodney King, and the same thing with the OJ case and all these events. They're just manufactured. They're meant to happen. They don't look for news stories. They create these real news stories. They get covered. They go relatively quickly.
Yes.
When you see something covered 24/7, it's on the news. It's throughout history, and they make movie after. For example, they made a movie after, of course, the OJ case. They made it like a TV movie about Rodney King. So all these things are reinforcing their lies through their medias of propaganda. and movies is a huge one, and music too. But movies and music are two huge aspects of social programming.
because they get so deep into our mind. And even I think some people like think back and think they remember something, but then realize like, oh wait, that was in a movie. Like it's hard for your brain to distinguish between reality and a movie. When they look at what your brain is doing when you're watching real life versus watching a movie, it's like the same thing. So you have to really be like super aware. Even if you are aware, I feel like it's like slightly dangerous in some ways. And I mean, I consume media, like I'm not immune to that, but it's interesting like how well it works. And so of course that's the methods that they're going to choose to create that stuff. But
yeah, and that's another thing. And I should mention also, and of course, people first hearing this, they're like, wow, this guy's off his rocker type of thing. I totally get it.
now they're all going to love you.
Really really look into it. For example, they work off this concept of sign, symbols, dates, numbers, and colors.
Yeah.
The whole OJ case, if people just look at the whole big picture, for example, you have OJ Simpson in numerology, Simpson's 33. He so happened, after being supposedly acquitted, 13 years of the day, he was sentenced to prison for stealing back his own merchandise for 33 years.
Oh yeah.
He was sued by the Goldman family in the civil case for 33 million. So they're going to have their numbers. And how does it happen where it's 13 years of the day after being acquitted, he sentenced to prison? So there's a lot of these aspects. And one huge key thing is too, just about everybody involved in the O.J. Simpson case, they became actors or producers in Hollywood. From the D.A. Gil Garcetti, right now he's a producer in Hollywood. He's received awards for what he's done. You had Chris Darden, and he did a cameo appearance in Liar Liar with Jim Carrey.
Wow.
He was interviewed, asked you how's the transition from being a lawyer to an actor. He goes, there's no difference. We're both paid a lot.
There's literally no difference.
Yeah, and so you have then you have of course Marcia Clark, writing many books, being signed for multi-million-dollar deals. This is the connection with Christopher Darden in the movie Liar Liar. Now you have Marcia Clark in a TNT movie titled Pretty Little Liars. And so they all became actors, and it's just amazing. Kato Kaelin, of course, a known actor. They're not hiding at all. So again, and also like Johnny Cochran, he did an interview talking about Freemasonry. He's part of the Brotherhood. Of course, you have Robert Kardashian, who ties in all, and of course, we know about Kim, Chloe, and Courtney, the KKK, and it's not a racist thing. It's just K's the 11th letter in the alphabet, so 11, 11, 11, 33.
Oh, yeah.
So how they code things, and yeah, just everybody involved, like Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz in the courtroom. You see him do the Masonic hand sign the whole time. It's just a really deep rabbit hole to go down. But this is definitely something that was put into play. And here's the big thing people need to look at. You have CNN covering this extensively, Court TV, which is basically Time Warner. They're all under the umbrella of Time Warner. Here's the thing: is how does this happen when you have O.J. Simpson supposedly in jail, prison, whatever? He's able to do an audiobook from a cell. How does that happen?
Yeah.
And here's the thing: is his audiobook was released by Time Warner. Mm-hmm. The same ones covering it. So isn't that a conflict of interest type of thing? So there's many things like after the case. You had OJ with the banana incident. I don't know if you recall that.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, well, there's an incident where he was interviewed. OJ Simpson, one of his first interviews was by an American woman. Her name is Ruby Wax. Just happens to have a 33 name. She's a very famous talk show host in the UK. Not well known in the US, but they like to have, for example, they bring over UK actors or like TV hosts in the US. They love to do that. They sound smart, complex. When American people hear them, they're very convincing.
Yes.
And vice versa in the UK. So anyways, what happened was during this interview, it was a long drawn out type of interview. And at the very end, OJ had a message for Ruby Wax, and he said it in the video. And that's someone opening up a door. And when that person opens up the door, there's OJ holding a banana. and he's doing a stabbing motion, like, and he's doing the, you know, the like
Yeah.
the sound effect of stabbing,
Yeah.
and then he looks in the camera with the biggest smile, and he just looks right there with in just the biggest grin. It's like telling you, you know, everybody, you've been punked. You all been punked. This is just like people say, oh, what an evil man. He hates Nicole, and he's, you know, oh, you know, he's, how can he do this when the whole thing was staged? And I can keep going on with the OJ thing. For example, if you ever look at the actual photos of Nicole and the pool of blood, here's a huge thing. I have video footage. It's literally down this this walkway, this pathway where the condo is, and it's just literally like gallons of blood. Here's a problem: she doesn't lose her skin color. She still has her skin tone. She should be. If you lose that much blood, you're gonna have very light skin. Like, you're gonna turn like literally white.
Yeah.
And the big thing is, you never see that cut. Like when they have the photo, her, like, everything's covered. Of course, they have the supposed autopsy photos, which they can fake, but that scene right there is just like a real red flag. There's just so much to it. Here's a big thing. Like when people see the Bronco go down the freeway, it was literally a slow speed chase, because they want to do this safely.
I do remember that.
When he gets to Rockingham, here's another big thing too. I said earlier how they basically, with these contrived stories that they create, they make them into movies. There's been OJ movie on Fox, and here's a huge thing. And what it comes down to is the CIA. There's this one CIA officer, I believe his name was it John Stockwell. He stated, you know, the function of the CIA is to keep the world unstable and to propagandize the public, and based on fear and hate. And that gets back to the Bronco. There's symbolism there. The white Bronco is the white horse, like biblically.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the white horse. That's why they use the Bronco as a prop. But here's a big thing.
Whoa. Okay. I just have a random question then later
Sure,
about
sure. Because I keep going too.
that Bronco that's at the Denver International Airport that's blue. Would that be like another one of the horse? I've never thought of it before until you just said that.
Because exactly. When, like, for example, when Obama gave his was that the speech, the very famous speech from Denver at Mile High Stadium, and they had the Bronco, and they really highlighted that. That's the biblical white horse. And for example, when they do psyops, they love to do like a shooting psyop, a shooting hoax. They love to have, like, for example, a lot of men are wearing like the polo shirt or a polo hat which has the white horse on it. So people have to read between the lines and be there with a lot of these events. But getting back to the Bronco itself, this is very key, very important. There's actually two Broncos. You had AC Cowling's Bronco and you had OJ. So the Bronco that we saw on TV, that was actually AC Cowling's. The interesting thing is it had a 3 at the beginning, a 3 at the end for 33. And people say, oh, that's just a coincidence, random, big deal. But here's the thing is, now the TV movie, exact same 3. It's a different license plate.
What?
It had a 3, yes.
Wow.
It has a 3 in the front, 3 at the end. But
that's not an
here's
accident.
the major thing. In the center, it has CIA.
What?
In the TV movie. So there's a lot of like, that gets into a lot of psychological operations.
Yeah.
Where I've covered over the years, they have coded license plates where people just see letters and numbers. But when you use the numerology calculator, and this is a huge thing, I shouldn't just run past. It's, again, these Masons work off signs, symbols, dates, numbers, and colors. And the huge thing is numerology, where, you know, like in Hebrew, of course, you know, for example, comparing the American alphabet, you know, A is 1, you know,
right.
B is 2, C is 3. So basically, when it comes down to it, a lot of psychological operations, you'll have that coded 33. So look for the license plates. And if anybody knows about numerology, there's numerology calculators online, the Pythagorean one, and there's also the Chaldean. Just look at those for these events. They love to show them, like with Dylan Roof in that South Carolina event.
Yeah.
I seen like a headline on LA newspaper where they show Dylan Roof being handcuffed, and there's a license plate right behind him. And I like spotlight that because I know how they like to put Easter eggs, and people are not going to see that stuff. And sure enough, it's a 33 coded license plate. But here's the big thing is, Dylan Roof. He was basically indicted for 33 counts, for the trial. So they always code these events, and not
Yeah.
to go too long because there's so much to cover. But if you want to go back to the OJ thing and anything else about that, there's a lot to cover on that. But we could have a whole like a 10-hour show just on the OJ case. But there's
Right.
so much to cover. I don't want to stick on one topic unless you want to review anything about that. But yeah, any other question? I don't want to go on too long. I'll try to keep it be more concise so we can have actual back and forth dialogue. But there's so much to cover. It's really hard to do it. But stop me anytime if I end up going on too long, please.
Absolutely, I will. But it's awesome because you have so much knowledge and so much experience that hearing you describe things is like connecting a lot of dots. And it's interesting the those encodes you're talking about, like with the number 33 and other things, that it's like on one hand people would say like, oh no, that's just a coincidence and whatever, and on another hand when you start looking and you see them everywhere, then you just become aware of how they're like mocking us all, and they're just laughing because they're like so obvious about some of it. I mean, some of the things are so obvious, like building 7, that you're like, how could people not notice? But they've done such a good job at conditioning us all and training us all to like attack each other and to keep ourselves silent and afraid and quiet that it just works.
Yeah. Well, that you just hit the nail on the head. To eliminate the thought that these are just a coincidence, here's a huge thing. For example, with the main example, the record number of hours of so-called astronauts to the moon is 33 hours. The reason they brought Tang to the moon, it's orange Tang. Orange is 33 numerologists. So these are
Orange?
symbolic.
Okay, I've never heard the orange thing until the past like month, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing it everywhere. Has this always been known by people that orange is a Masonic thing?
Yes. Well, the
I
thing is
never
this:
knew
there's
that.
going back in Europe. There's the Orange Order. So it's and this is huge. When it comes to that, again, this is key. It's the only color in numerology that is 33 is orange. So, for example, you'll have a movie like Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and the whole movie is based around the commodity of orange juice. So it's based on the foundation of the 33. They show the Twin Towers on scenes. They show the 9/11 on the clock at one point. So they're always like coded. They love their little Easter eggs, and they know the masses are just they're not going to understand it. It's like goes right over them. It's like it's like a joke that goes over someone's head on so many things, and that's huge. Like even the UN logo, people just look at it. But here's a big thing, and I'm going to pause here with the UN logo. This is a good example, so people understand the language of symbolism. Again, I said it earlier. I said it a couple times how they work off signs, symbols, dates, numbers, and colors. Well, there's a quote by a very famous Freemason, Manly P. Hall, and he states, basically when it comes down to it, the language of symbolism. Once the language of symbolism is understood, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men, because this is how these people work and how they operate. And so that gets back to the UN logo, which people see. Oh, it has it's the flat Earth model. There are 33 segments. But here's the big thing people bypass is there's a laurel wreath that goes around it. And in ancient Greece or in Rome, this represents triumph or victory. And this is huge. So it's basically triumph over the world, the 33 segments. And again, it's the flat Earth map or model right in plain sight. So people are just like honing down on one thing. They're looking at only one thing when there's multiple symbols, and people should not bypass. I see the flat Earth model. I see 33 seconds. Look at every single symbol. It has a meaning, a deeper meaning. And that's what I really emphasize with people. For example, look at the Bank of America logo. Just know there's a reason for those. It's dual slashes. There's a set of 3. That's 11, 11, 11, 33.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And also, it's also red and blue. Red and blue is purple. That's for royalty. It also applies for witchcraft.
Wow.
So that's why it's heavily prevalent in society, where many, many logos are red and blue. And that gets deeper. And this gets into the spiritual world of the fallen angels, the bloodline, where they're called, of course, the royalty, they're called the blue bloods. Yeah. And that's because people say they literally have a blue hue to them because they have blue blood, and we have red blood. So you mix the two,
Hmm.
and you get purple type of thing. So this is like it's really out there for a lot of people. I understand it, but we live in this created world, this spiritual world, and there's definitely a spiritual warfare taking place, and a lot of people can't go there because it gets really deep. It gets really deep, and it's people need to really um, not just like say frown at this or look at it sideways because there's a reason why they're doing everything. They're not just doing it for no reason whatsoever. Again, the spiritual warfare that's taking place, and it's the war on the minds and the war on the souls.
Yes. I'm absolutely with you on the spiritual warfare front. And I think, like you said, I think people unfortunately have been trained to sort of balk at that. And especially if you in any way attach it to Christianity, then it just explodes even more and people freak out and lose it. But I think it's really important to not just push that off the table and ignore it. I think it's really important to look at like why are we being trained, to completely freak out at certain mention of certain things, and that doesn't mean necessarily that people should go like join a Christian church or something or buy that dogma, but at the very least like ask questions about it and look at where you get like emotionally triggered for anything, really anything in life, and just ask yourself like, why is this emotional for me, and what, because usually, and I forget who first said this to me, but I found it to be a very good methodologies to follow that emotion, because it's usually indicates some sort of programming that you've undergone, right? Since we're really
Yes.
little kids, we've been undergoing this programming all throughout our lives, and we're emotional when it starts cracking or when it's challenged. And so it's important, I think, to look at that, especially when you get emotional.
I agree 100%, Lindsay. Here's the big thing is that I tell people it's like, I grew up going to a Christian church, a Christian family, but I do understand all these religions are based on deception. There's a
Yes.
creator. I do believe biblically, the truth is there,
Yes.
but the churches deviate completely. They don't talk about the flat earth truth. They don't talk about many things like Jeremiah 10 talks about do not cut the tree from the forest and line it with silver or gold. Don't hammer it down so it doesn't totter. This describes a Christmas tree, and
Yeah.
Christians are hanging this
I've never
in their
known that.
homes. They have this in their homes, and you look out, and I'll tell you right now, like every single televangelist, they're a Mason. They're just playing a role in the world stage. So it
Yeah.
doesn't mean like biblically, a lot of things that are stated aren't true. Like I said, the Bible is literally a flat Earth book. Genesis basically describes the world we live in. It's compass. It has bounds. Compassed by bounds. The oceans, all this stuff. So how there's a firmament above us, all this stuff. It's there, but again, the churches completely deviate. Where in the
Yes.
opposite realm of the school textbooks, they don't deviate. The teachers must stick to what is stated in the school textbooks. If they deviate, and a student says, "Hey, this science teacher is saying the moon landings are fake," that teacher is going to have a hard time keeping their job.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a huge difference with the school system and the churches, where the churches just they completely deviate from the Bible completely. And that's the thing is people go believe in the Bible or not. That's their own choice, but definitely without a shadow of a doubt, there's a creator.
Yes. There's a creator, you're a spiritual being, and there's definitely evil in the world. There's evil
Yes,
in the
there is.
universe, and you do not have
There,
to go along with it.
yeah, that there definitely is. And the big thing is for example, on the topic of flat Earth, is someone like my friend David Weiss, who was an atheist, believed in the spinning ball, but once he realized we live on a flat Earth, he became a believer. That was a huge turning point, and nothing has turned more atheists into believers than flat Earth. It's a created. It's like I tell this to people that still, a lot of Christians. It's really hard to speak to a lot of them because I try to explain. I said, look, this whole idea of this explosion, this spinning ball, this supports evolution. Doesn't it basically it bypasses the creator, tries to remove the creator from the equation, and then you hear like a big long pause from them because they're like, wow, that does make sense. It just doesn't fit with the creator. So definitely, it's very important. This is why I really promote flat Earth, because this is the foundation. This spinning rocket water ball zipping through space, through so-called infinite space. This is the biggest. This is the lie. This is the foundation of all the lies, and this is why it's so important to really hammer the flat Earth. We don't have to stay on that topic now, but just really want to emphasize how important it is to understand once the foundation of something's a lie, everything after that's a lie. I give the analogy all the time. and this is a like really basic, really key. It's like a married man. He meets a female that he finds attractive. They start talking, and he lies to her, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm single." And they get together, and they get together. They hang out. She's like so in love with him, believing all the lies. The foundation is that he's single.
Mhm.
So they're going to nice dinners, doing this, doing that. He buys her gifts, and then, but the point is, they keep going on, and the problem is everything from that foundation is a lie. So even though the feelings are real and it appears real, it's all a lie
It's all been corrupted.
because the foundation's off. So that's the same thing with this world.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing is, she finds out one day that that he's married, and she can't believe it that she's been duped. It's just like all these people in this world; they don't want to believe they're duped, and it's like this too. It's like you hear about this happening with people, and no one wants to believe it. That's the person that's in the relationship. They don't want to believe it, but everybody else around like knows about it, type of thing. And the last person to find out or know and accept it is the person involved in that situation. So it's kind of like, I don't want to go too long with that example, but it's a really good analogy of
Yeah.
when the foundation is a lie, everything after that is going to be off.
And I think it then allows people too to not see their our captors or whatever you want to call these psychopaths for what they really are. Because I think when you're just looking at other levels of the illusion and conspiracy, that you see greed and you see sort of just corruption and self-centeredness, and you can think for a while that that's all it is, that these are just people who have gone like off the deep end with greed into psychopathy, and that that's all there is. But in reality, I think it's very important to see that whatever these people are, if they're people or not or whatever, they're acting from a place of spiritual decay. I don't know what you want to call that, but that it's not just sort of this human emotion that like a lot of us have at various times. It's something more than that. And I think if you misunderstand that too, then you're like misunderstanding your entire enemy, How can you fight back against someone you've completely misunderstood?
Lindsay, everything you say, I just hear, and it just brings me to exactly topics that should be presented that otherwise I wouldn't brought up unless you mentioned that. For example, at the Bohemian Grove, they have that cremation of care.
Yeah.
That's to rid yourself of all the cares and all the bad things you do. And you're basically, whatever you do, you're not going to like have any guilt or, remorse. So it's like, almost like whenever they do something, it's like when, like, for example, there's hunters in Africa and they're ordered to thin out a herd of like wildebeest. And this is like the psychopaths, they're doing things. It's like, oh, it's the betterment in their mind, in the betterment of society. So like they're slaughtering all these wildebeest. They say it's for the whole ecosystem. There's too many of them, so we need to do it. It's like a necessary evil type thing.
Yeah.
And that gets back to the people that run this world, and it's very complex. It's here's the thing is, they work off this system of, we're not gonna kill people on our own, literally, with these like hoaxes and psyops, like from 9/11 to Boston or Sandy Hook. They don't kill people in these events, just like they don't kill people directly with like poisons per se. But it's like this: they warn you, and then you poison yourself.
Yes.
So like on a tube of toothpaste, it'll say, fluoride. That's the main ingredient. If ingested, call poison control.
Yeah.
You walk into McDonald's or Starbucks in California, wherever you are, they'll have signs in the state of California known to cause cancer, birth defects, reproductive harm. So they're telling you, and people are still like consuming these products. You go to Disneyland, they have signs, products known to cause cancer. They have them everywhere in the picnic areas. So it's like, even like, for example, not to go into too long, Lindsay, because I tend to do that.
No,
I
you're
apologize.
you're
But like, for example, you
killing
buy
it.
a tea set. You buy a tea set, and you want to drink some nice, healthy green tea. And you look at the bottom of the cups or the bottom of the kettle. It says made in China, and also say the warning label of products known to cause cancer, birth defects, are contained in this set. So you could drink some healthy tea out of this tea kettle, these cups that have these things that do harm to you, and they leach off. It's not like a tremendous amount, but it's going to have effect long term.
Cumulatively, yeah. from all the things. And it's literally everything. Like I heard that copper is a good thing to drink water out of if you're going to have water. Like put some of the minerals back in, you get some copper, and it's a rare element in your diet. And so I went looking and I realized that like 98% of the copper things you can buy are coated in something else that keeps the copper from the food or the water. So it keeps the good effects from even happening. So all these people are buying all these copper things that they are not looking into, like they're actually coated inside. I mean, it's really hard to find a copper product that is not coated in something. Really hard.
It's like this, when we go to the grocery store and we buy apples and they're nice and shiny, well, they're sprayed with a coat of wax. If you get like a butter knife or any dull kind of back of a knife, you can literally scrape off the wax. This is to keep it moist, also for presentation. So yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, this world we live in. But again, the whole point I'm making is with the psychopaths is we're going to warn you. And like for example, all these doctors that go on CNN or Fox News, even Dr. Oz will say like things like of course he pushes vaccines to literally millions of people, not only in the United States, throughout the world. He pushes vaccines. He had an episode where he said everybody in the audience says they're going to get vaccinated, and everybody's literally clapping.
What the hell?
In the audience. Here's the big thing is, then he goes on CNN. He's interviewed about it. He's talking about how we should get vaccinated. Then he goes, oh, by the way, I get vaccinated. When I come home, I'm no longer a Dr. Oz, I'm Mr. Oz, and my wife doesn't get vaccinated. Neither do our children. So he can convince people like watching TV, through the power of brainwashing, to get vaccinated. But he, it's a red flag. What I'm getting at is he can't convince his own wife. So people are just like, oh, you wear a tinfoil hat, you're nuts, you're a crackpot. But then I point that out to them. Then they're like, they don't know what to say.
Yes.
They have no, and I showed them that video. It's only a 10-second, 12-second clip. They're like, they have no response. They have zero response. They can't say anything to things like that.
Yeah. Well, and like in the moment, you'll even convince yourself that must not be what he really said, because that doesn't fit with what my idea of what's going on is, and so you just kind of like move past it. But I had a really good question from the chat, and it was, what do you think about Halbig's recent arrest in relation to Sandy hoax?
Whose arrest?
Halbig, Wolfgang Halbig.
Yeah, here's the thing is, and I'm going to be very honest, people are not going to like it, but when it comes to people like Alex Jones and these big names in the media, they're part of it.
You think Halbig's part of it?
This is just an absolute hoax. Nobody died. Nobody got hurt. We didn't see, and I have to emphasize this, the issues with mold in the classrooms. Yeah. This tells you there's no air conditioning going on, so mold uniform. There was literally no internet activity before all this went down. We don't see a single bullet hole in the classroom. We don't see a single drop of blood. They demolished the school after this all went down.
Yeah, which is bizarre.
And, we know, Lindsay, of course, about all the Robbie Park and all the smiling. But here's the thing is, we don't see a single teardrop from, of course, any of the parents.
No.
And here's a big thing, though. People say, look at Robbie Parker. He's smiling and laughing. But the thing is, that's meant to happen that way. That's meant to play out that way. That's not by accident. That's why the CNN cameraman had that angle to make sure to capture that. They want these people behind the conspiracies. They want people to fight over these things. It's like people are awake like us. They'll say, look, we see him smiling. And it's automatically it's going to create a divide with people that are dead asleep, that just are like, they worship the TV, like whatever it's stated. And I don't want to deviate too far off Wolfgang Halbig, but he is part of this. Him and that guy, what's his name, James Tracy. Yeah. All these big names, they are part of this. They're like, they're going to have their main big names that are not really on our side. So it's a pantomime. It's a puppet show. And one thing I want to mention too, when it comes to Sandy Hook, that's a very key aspect. And there's many aspects, but one big thing is, of course, Adam Lanza. The big thing is, a lot of people right after this went down, was it 2012? Was it 2013? 2012? I forgot the exact year. I think it was 2013. December. I think it was December 13, 2000. I could be wrong. Whatever the date is, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of military people that came out, like on say social media, specifically Facebook, saying there's no way that Adam Lanza could hold all the ammo they said they did. So Of
Right.
course, they always give you option A or option B. And that gets back to supposedly arresting a man. This was, a guy being interviewed at the scene of Sandy Hook, arresting a man that's supposedly wearing camouflage pants walking through the woods.
Yeah.
So maybe it was Adam Lanza. No, maybe it was a guy in the forest with the camouflage pants when it's none of the above.
No one.
The
Yeah.
A and B options is just a flat out hoax. We can get into the crazy corner, Dr. Carver. That's a planned name with the Carver.
Yeah.
He carves up people. Like, here's a bizarre thing. The school is only one story. He was asked about the children. Has he looked at all of them, the autopsy and all of them? And he goes and say, well, not all of them. Some are still on the second floor. Well, there's only one floor.
Weird.
Yeah, and why are they still up in the second floor? And then he's laughing and giggling, and like he's asked things like, well, someone asked like, so what were the kids wearing? Oh, they were wearing kid stuff. Just like.
And the comment about like, I hope this doesn't come down on all our heads or something.
Yeah,
and you're just like,
yeah,
what?
that's a big one. And he talked about the tent. He was saying it was a magnificent thing, and just the head rolls he did, and it's like that movie. It's like this. It's like a big SNL skit.
Yeah.
Playing on the masses. When you're awake, here's a big thing, Lindsay, and everybody else listening in. With all these events and any kind of investigating, you have to remove your emotions from all this to really see things for what it is. A lot of people are like, oh, the poor kids, the poor kids, the poor kids. Here's something very, very interesting. I just popped in my head. Because, like I said, there's so many things to cover with Sandy Hook. Here's a very interesting thing that many people don't talk about. And that is the Wizard of Oz, basically how they implemented the whole scenario, the whole situation with the Wizard of Oz, and the kids singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Everybody remembers after this all went down, you had all the kids singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow with the school teacher. You remember that?
No. That's creepy.
It was really big, something I covered extensively. So you had all these kids, and actually look it up. Anybody can look it on YouTube and just take a quick peek while I'm talking about it. So this is a really key aspect, and I'm going to wrap back around to Sandy, but I want to just break down the Wizard of Oz really quick, where you have, Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion going down the path, and it's all like fear. It's all like a fear campaign that's put on them throughout their whole journey, follow the yellow brick road. But when they get to the end, here's the thing: it's like a big. It's like that, actually the beginning is a big circle, it's like a serpent, that's why they had that like swirl. They're big, Satanists are big in the swirl symbolism because it's literally a snake. Like if you ever watch that 666 Park Avenue, they'll show a spiral staircase. Well, the spiral is literally a serpent wrapped in a coil. So they love the spiral symbolism. So I'm kind of deviating here, but it's all going to connect.
Yeah.
So when they reach the end of the so-called yellow brick road, they of course you see that one image of that very scary figure with the flames and the organ, and behind it all was this old man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And it's what they're telling us is this is how this world operates. There's people behind the curtain we never see, putting fear in us, this boogeyman on us, and it's about control, and it's just a big game to them, and that's what it comes down to. But getting back to that's key to say because it wraps back to Sandy Hook, where back in 1981 there was an album released by Judy Garland. It's called Annie Get Your Gun. Okay, and it says produced Sandy Hook Productions in 1981. So it's key. The key point I'm making is you have Sandy Hook Productions on this album with Judy Garland, who sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Weird.
And it ties into these kids singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So these are events people say, so you're saying that, this is planned out all the way back to 81. Well, here's the thing is, look at 9/11. The groundbreaking for the Pentagon was September 11th, 1941. That is literally 60 years to the day when it supposedly gets attacked.
Jesus.
That gets to the towers. The groundbreaking for the North Tower was in August of 1968. That's huge because it's 33 years, and the groundbreaking, the towers coming down. That's 33 years from 1968 to 2001. That's 33 years. Now here's another tie-in. You have the 9/11 calling system. going into play the same year tower construction started in 1968.
Wow.
And here's another connection where you have the movie, for example, that's based on Deep Space, 2001 Space Odyssey. This was released in 1968. So from 68 to 2001, that's a 33-year difference. So they like to do these by the date things, coded, and definitely Space Odyssey 2001, that's deep space programming.
Yeah.
So getting back to, and I should mention this, and I talk about it heavily, and stop me anytime, Lindsay, because I tend to go on forever.
Keep
you want to stop me right
keep
there?
going.
Okay, keep going. Okay, so huge thing is about predictive programming. And one key aspect, huge aspect, is Back to the Future. All the movies, and there's a lot of flat Earth and 9/11 in movies.
Yeah.
And a huge one is with Back to the Future, with that one scene where you have Needles, that one character Needles, where he tells Marty McFly, "You've been fired." Remember that scene?
No.
On the TV. Okay, there's a scene.
I have a bad memory.
No, it's okay. I'll break it down because I'm sure people will remember once. You'll remember once I break it down. There's this one scene in Back to the Future 2 where you have Old Man McFly show up. He's hanging upside down, and they enter this one room where they show this TV screen that's not working properly. It's broken. That's what Miss McFly says. And you can always look at this after to refresh your memory when you see visuals of it. But what it comes down to is on the when it comes getting back to Needles, and here's the big thing is you have with Back to the Future, you have the concept of the Twin Pines Mall, the Lone Pine Mall. That's exactly what happened in reality, where we had the Twin Towers, and now we have the Freedom Tower. So it's one tower. So you have the two to start, then it became one. So that's the huge thing with the mall scene. And of course, when you arrive at the mall scene, Marty McFly, it's 9/11 backwards. There's only one like major department store you can see in the mall scene, and it's J.C. Penney. It was James Cash Penney, who was a very famous Freemason. J.C. Penney numerology is 33. So it's coded 9/11 and 33 in plain sight. People are not going to see this or understand it. But getting back to the TV screen, and you have Needles. I'll get back to the Marty McFly hanging upside down, or I should say Old Man McFly hanging upside down. But getting back to the Needles aspect, there's so many aspects. The key thing is Needles. Why is his name Needles? Needles is a reference to pine needles, just like the Twin Pines Mall. Tannin in German means pine. So this is about the pineal gland they're talking about, with all these characters hidden and coded with the pine, a reference to the pine. Look at the Vatican, where you see like staffs with a pine cone.
Yeah, they have like pine cones everywhere in the Vatican.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is this. I'm really just deviating, going in a lot of different directions. There's so much to cover.
I love it.
A huge aspect when I'm getting back to 9/11 is this. You have Needles, the man that calls Marty McFly a chicken, because, you know, what are you, a chicken McFly? Because I'm not a chicken. So anyways, a big aspect is you have Needles on the screen. They give his birthday. They give all the all of his past experience, his age. But the big thing I'm getting at is they say he was born. It was August 6, 1968. Here's the thing is, and this anybody can look this up. The very first steel beam that was placed in the North Tower, the first tower during construction, was the same exact date. So this is definitely a reference to the Twin Towers. And here's a big thing. You see Marty McFly wearing a twin tie. You see the sun symbolism that represents, people have seen this many times, where you look at the Twin Towers and you see the sun between them.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of symbolism. And this might be hard to explain if people haven't seen the movie or they haven't watched it in a long time. Definitely it's going to be hard to put this all into perspective. But one thing, getting back to Back to the Future 2, is where you have Old Man McFly arrive at the house. They basically, he goes in a room with the wife, and she's talking about how the TV's broken, and basically they're looking at Twin Pines on the screen. Then it flips over. The TV's broken, so it flips over to another channel, and they literally show the Twin Towers on the screen. But here's the thing: is the Twin Towers, because the TV's not working properly, the Twin Towers are going up. But you have Old Man McFly who's upside down for some type of he has some type of condition. He needs to be hung upside down. But so from his perspective, if you flip over the vantage point, the towers are coming down from his view. Now people say, "Oh, just coincidence, whatever." Here's the big thing: is if you watch that scene in that room, what do you see right in front of the TV screen? It is the Statue of Liberty torch. Like as part of like there's a table, you have all the design. So you have the Twin Towers. Basically, it represents the harbor view in New York. Look at the Twin Towers where you have the Statue of Liberty in the foreground and the Twin Towers on the screen. So it's just amazing. All these little hints and clues that are in plain sight. And even if you rewind, you go back to the first Back to the Future, it's like they love their little Easter eggs, like I said. The very first Back to the Future, where they have all the clocks, being displayed. What happens later in the movie is you have Doc hanging by the clock tower. Like that's part of the scene, like, towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But what you see in the beginning is you see a little replica of Doc hanging from one of the clocks from the arms. So they're literally telling you what's going to happen later in the movie in the beginning. It's like a little joke.
I don't know if this has any connection, but someone mentioned earlier that judge in the OJ case was shown with like a room full of clocks or something. And now you're mentioning all these clocks, and I'm like, weird that it came up twice in one episode.
Yeah, you're talking about Judge Ito.
Yeah.
Lance Ito, yes. And so, and also too, as far as the clocks, there's like trickery. It's like, how can I say? It's like it's like this deception where they're showing the dog, the aspect where they show the dog food can being opened, and people are focusing on that, but they don't see what's right behind them. There's literally a flat Earth model clock in the background. Huh. So they're showing the flat Earth model. So literally, it's just like the UN logo. It's a flat Earth model, and you have, of course, on a clock, it's going to have that protective screen, and that's like the firmament, and that gets to, this world we live in. Like people don't realize concepts like when you wear a wristwatch, like an old-fashioned wristwatch, or any kind of like old-fashioned grandfather clock. That's literally the flat Earth model. That's literally the world we live in. It's based on two arms, one being the sun, one being the moon. Yeah. One moving faster than the other. And here's the thing: is we know that there's evidence of this electromagnetic world we live in by a compass is pointing north. So basically, the sun and the moon are dictated, just like a clock. The centerpiece dictates how the arms move. Well, the sun and the moon are dictated by the so-called center of the North Pole, and the sun and moon definitely work together based on this electromagnetism. And every aspect, I'm jumping around, but every aspect of our world, by the crater, like our oceans are salt water. Why would the oceans be salt water? Well, oceans being salt water, they're highly conductive. So with this, that's exactly how tides work. So the sun and moon circle above. Yeah. Dictate the tides. So people believe like oh, we live in a ball. Like, how do you flood a ball? If you have global warming, how do tides work in a ball? It's just ridiculous. It makes so much more sense on a flat plane. And here's the big thing: is
especially with the electromagnetics.
Great Lakes. There's no tides in the Great Lakes because they're fresh water. Yeah. So there's a reason for everything. Yeah. Definitely. By the creator.
I love that. I love that you're tying that all together. When you brought up the Statue of Liberty, I thought of how I just for the first time recently was it was brought up somewhere that I saw, and I was like, that's a good point, that perhaps the Statue of Liberty is not a lady. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I actually talked about that. I actually done videos on that years ago. Basically, if you look at going back in time to ancient Greece, ancient Rome, they have Helios. Of course, that's the sun god. Helio is the sun, and holding the torch. And not to get graphic, but literally, it's a nude man. You can see his privates and everything.
In the Statue of Liberty or in the Helios model?
Yes. Yeah. So when you look at Helios, exactly. When you look at Helios, it's literally, he has exactly what the Statue of Liberty has on the head. That represents the sun rays, the crown, holding up a torch with one hand. Holding a cloak, just like the Statue of Liberty is wearing a cloak. And if you look, and I've shown this, if you look at old depictions of Helios, of Apollyon, this is key. They're all the same person, just given different names. It's the same. Helios, Abaddon, Apollyon, they're all the same person. They all have the same face. And literally, what you see in the New York Harbor is basically a man in drag type of thing. And this is the world of deception where nothing's what it seems. And that gets back to, again, giving us truth in movies and music and lies in news. There's a song by Madonna, it's called American Life. And the lyrics go at one point, I'm just living out the American dream, and I just realized that nothing is what it seems. And they're putting the truth in music. Like there's a song by Styx called The Grand Illusion. They talk about the welcome to the Grand Illusion. Don't believe the TV or the magazines. You know, we're all the same. It just goes on and on about literally this world of deception. So people say, oh, it's just a song. It's just a movie. But that's the best place to tell the truth. It's like this. If you want to tell someone the truth, you kind of tell them in a joke form to kind of ease it over. You know, for example, a guy might like a woman and, you know, kind of like joke with her in a joking way and tell her as a joke, but he means it. You know, oh,
yeah.
I thought, you know, you're so, yeah, you know, kind of like in a joke because that's a comfortable way of doing it. You can't be like a straight man saying it because then it gets really like serious and tense and uncomfortable.
Possible rejection and yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of like try to put feelers out there, but it's the same kind of concept of they love to put the truth out there in a form of sort of like almost like comedy or entertainment, like I said. But the big thing is this: people need to understand when it comes to all movies, in a huge aspect is music as well. Like I said, it's always going to be programming first and the entertainment second. That's why people say a lot of times, "Oh, these movies suck."
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's about programming you, conditioning you. It's like here's a big thing. Not to go into long, but I will do that. There's one movie called Pixels, and you have the director, producer named Christopher Columbus, just like the Christopher Columbus who supposedly sailed, discovered America.
Weird. Yeah.
And the thing is this: there's this one like chubby kid, and he's talking about conspiracies. He's talking about the moon landing, and I'm gonna crack the code. And all these other classmates are on. There's like 5 or 6, 7. And they go and they just look at him funny. He goes, "Well, you must not have any friends." He goes, "Well, I have my grandma." So they're literally putting a subconscious seed. It's not cool to be someone that questions anything. You're gonna be like humiliated. You're gonna be frowned at. So this is like social programming in movies. There's so many aspects where it hit at so many different levels, and that's a big part of it, is shaming people for actually asking questions.
And training everyone how they treat somebody who does it, like, because it works. I mean, if you go out and you say most of these things in most public arenas, then you're going to get that response of attack and shame and ridicule. And, we don't need police when we have each other, apparently.
Yeah, it's definitely thought control. And the big thing is, of course, everybody works hard to be liked and accepted. Mm-hmm. Men, they'll buy the nice car, they'll buy, the $300, $400 sunglasses, buy the nicest clothes. And they drive around and, being someone that's involved with truth, it's not going to come, you're going to lose, you're going to lose people. You're going to lose family, friends, peers. The opposite sex are going to find you weird, awkward. I'm not going to date you because you're a wacko. So that's definitely a huge aspect. And that's basically keeping people locked in a box. I can't go in that direction because I'm basically going to be shunned by society. And this is really the sheep mentality, of course. So yeah, I mean, you have to really be strong to be at this. And for example, it's hard enough, for example, if someone's single, to find a mate that, that's the truth there. It's hard enough it's hard enough to find someone. Now you put this aspect of you're involved with truth. Now it makes it like 100 times harder type of thing. But but again, when it comes down to it, that we shouldn't be dictated by these things. We should just it's like this. I tell this to people when it comes to any kind of relationship, just be who you are. Yeah. Because in the end, they're going to find out who you are anyways. Yeah. And it's going to fall apart later.
Put it out there.
Who you really are.
Right.
So just be yourself type of thing,
Absolutely. This is one of the things that I appreciate, and I have not used Tinder, but I appreciate about Tinder that you can go on there and you can instantly kind of see, not with everyone obviously, but with a lot of people, like this, and this, and there's a lot of things that you can just be like, nope, that's not going to work anyway, and pass it up. So I mean, there's something to that. It'd be cool if we had like the alternative thinking version of the Tinder, but maybe
Well,
that's
actually, I think Zoom Truth. There's a guy named Zoom Truth where he has like this flat Earth search type of thing, and it's almost like a dating thing to meet
Ooh.
people.
I know there's people who are listening right now who are excited to hear that because we've been talking about this for a few years. We're like, someone should do it, and none of us ever do. So that's awesome. Zoom Truth.
Yeah, Zoom Truth. Yeah,
Go
he
get
has
it, guys.
this search. He has a search thing for on that specific topic. But here's another thing you could do. I mean, here's the thing is, there's aspects of people opposites attract type of thing. But when it comes down
It's
to
true.
when it comes down to it, how can like a man and a woman come together and like one's like involved in politics supporting Trump or Hillary, and then like it's a bunch of nonsense. So you're just gonna sit at a dinner table and like be too far off.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, at least if someone's a Democrat or Republican, they're in that lie system and they can like opposites attract. But when you're like not playing the game, then you're like it's too far off to like even go beyond dating and that type of thing, and it's just gonna fall apart. So yeah, like I said, it's just but the good news is more and more people are waking up.
Yes.
There's a lot more people that are open-minded, and I say it like this, Lindsay, and everybody else listening in. Topics like flat Earth or any other topic that might seem controversial, if you go to a party, you're like the only one talking about it, you're going to be shunned. But if, for example, if there's 3 or 4 people at that party, you mention flat Earth, and go, yeah, I looked into that. It's really far out there. I know there's a bad stigma about flat Earth, but man, I think there's something to it.
Yeah.
So then when you see more and more people talking about it, then it's like not uncomfortable for people on the fence or people who are new to it to actually talk about it. It's like, wow, there's 4 or 5 people here talking about flat Earth or any other conspiracy. Then it's now acceptable. It's not an uncomfortable thing. That's why it's so important for people to just bring it up, and you never know what you're going to find. And I think what it comes down to is definitely like people like you and me, Lindsay, and everybody else out there getting it out there. Like some people might not be video presenters, they don't do live streams, but just bring up the topic. Like you don't have to say you're a flat earther. Just say, hey, have you seen all this talk about flat Earth? See how they react.
True.
If they react really negatively, just kind of back up a little bit. But if they might say, hey, I actually seen that's interesting, then you could roll from that. But if they don't want to, then you can just kind of feel them out. And if they're like get really aggressive with it, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
You just leave it alone type of thing,
You can't fight aggression and strong emotion. But I also wanted to get your take on the coronavirus, because I started out being like, of course it's obviously fake, just like everything, why would they be even telling us about it? But then I started kind of going down the like, well, why isn't anyone talking about it? Like, what if there is something going on and they're trying to hide it from us, which I don't really usually do. So I don't know. I want to go with hoax, but part of me is like, maybe there's some real.
No, that's a fantastic question, because this is something I've covered extensively over the last several weeks. Yeah. Basically, it's like this. They're just embellishing in the highest level. It doesn't mean viruses are not present.
Right.
It's like this. The regular flu kills, unfortunately, the young and old.
Yeah.
But it's not sexy enough to just keep constantly pounding the flu drum. True. They're gonna bring up something different sounding, like it's a new enemy. It's complex and like something new, a new thing. We have to really go back in time and look at all these bogus fear tactics used in the public. One thing to remember
Zika
is
and Ebola.
Yeah, well, even before that, going back to the 80s, me being an 80s dude, 80s kid, I should say. I remember the fear campaign about the ozone layer being depleted because everybody using like aerosol spray, hairspray.
Yeah.
And I said this before, where the big joke was, oh, take that. A girl would have her hair like back in the 80s. A lot of the girls in school, they would have their hair like it'd be like a wall going straight up.
Yeah.
Or like really like out there, like we say, oh, take the hairspray bottle away from her. She's destroying the ozone layer. That was the big joke. And of course that went away.
Yeah.
The threat of killer bees. The killer bees are gonna get us.
Yes.
Acid rain's gonna get us, and all these things just kind of fall off the map, and people
I think we were supposed to be completely dead by now from global climate change too. Like if you go by like Al Gore's predictions or whatever.
Well, here's the thing: is I'm definitely going to back up even further. Is people need to see this, Lindsay? Is there's a documentary, and it's funny. It's hosted by Leonard Nimoy, of course, Spock from Star Trek, and guess what? It was a whole documentary. It's shown on actually later on History Channel. It was called The New Ice Age, and how they predict there's going to be this globe is going to turn into like a giant. They called it an ice desert where nothing's going to survive, and all the scientists are saying this. This is from '79. So somewhere along the line, the script writers to this fear campaign, they said, no, we're not going to go with a new ice age. We're going to go with global warming. Well, I tell those people all the time, this is how far the lies go. Not only is global warming a hoax, the globe's a hoax.
Yeah.
That's how far it goes with the lies. And of course, with the bad stigma of flat Earth, it's really hard for people to go there because, oh, you're so stupid. Oh my goodness, you believe that. But here's the thing: is with people actually, the people that really reject it, they don't know the diameter, they don't know the radius, they don't know the circumference, they don't know the speed of the spin, they don't know the miles per hour that we're going supposedly over 500,000 miles an hour through space, while the galaxy is moving at 1.3 million miles an hour. Here's a big thing. Just look at the sun. I mean, not literally look at the sun for a long time. I don't want to damage your eyes, but some people say, "Oh, actually, sun gazing is good for you." Yeah, but not to the point where you're looking at it for 3 minutes straight. But what I'm getting at is this: people have used digital cameras, and they don't even need to be that powerful, and just put a solar filter over them, and you could look at the sun, and see that sun's like literally not that far out there. It's literally in our system.
Yeah.
We're told by science that supposedly 1.3 million ball Earths can fit inside the sun. This is what we're told. And literally, the sun is just above the clouds. So again, this world of opposites, of duality, they tell us the world is very old when it's very young. The sun is very large and very far when it's actually much smaller and closer. The Earth is moving, spinning, and when it's the opposite, we're stationary in the stars, and sun and stars, and the moon are circling above, like the song by Journey, the wheel in the sky that keeps on turning. So, a huge aspect of duality is we have no souls. That's what we're told, and when we actually do. So, they work on the A to Z philosophy of, the human mind can't go from A to Z, and that's a huge aspect. People can debate. The sun is not 93 million miles away. It's 85 million or 73. But you can't tell them it's only a few hundred miles in the sky because it's just too huge of a deviation. And that's exactly why they teach on this duality aspect, this principle, is because to keep people the furthest away from the truth as possible.
Yeah, if the lie is that big, it's much harder for people to accept. If it was smaller, then they'd see through it faster. It's interesting too. I just realized they call themselves globalists, or do they call themselves that, or is that just us? But it's interesting.
Well,
the lie is built into their goal.
Actually, you're right, because it's not actually them. It's actually their controlled opposition. Alex Jones, David Icke.
They're the ones calling them
as globalists. So you're 100%. And that's a great point. Because they always do refer to themselves, because they're all one, and they always use that word globalist to really hammer in. It's like this. Getting back to the Future. What do you see? Of course, that spinning ball Earth before the movie starts.
Yeah.
Now here's an interesting thing, Lindsay, and everybody else listening in. So you have the concept of this globe before the movie starts, just like as the world turns with that soap opera back in the 80s, with the world spinning. But here's something. This is very key and very important. You have a man named George Lucas, of course, very famous for Star Wars and the whole entire series. This is all about, the Battle of the Stars. It's a Star Wars. It's the Battle of the Stars. It's the battle of good versus evil. Literally, biblically, the stars. They talk about how a third of the stars fell. These are the angels. A third of the angels fell. So it's literally a battle of the good and bad angels. That's what the Star Wars are. So what I'm getting at, though, with the whole thing with Star Wars, before the movie starts, we see the George Lucasfilm logo. So remember, we always see a planet in the start before Universal movies. But we also see something that people do not see is we see the flat Earth model. So we see the ball Earth with most of these movies, but in this case, it's the duality about outer space program. But before the movie starts, he's giving you the truth. We live in a flat Earth. It's literally, if you Google right now, Lucasfilm logo, you're going to see. Before, I don't want to spoil. I'll let you wait. Wait till you get there, Lindsay.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just talk about that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a quote by George Lucas from 1997, a book. He was quoted as saying, "Why is the public so stupid? Why do people watch movies? Why is the public so stupid?" And that gets back to the logo.
I've got the logo here.
Okay, so what you're looking at is this. You're looking at the firmament. You're looking at the sun and the moon under the firmament. We're limited underneath it.
Yeah.
So he's showing us, and this is getting back to Freemasonry, where they communicate. They learn to communicate without the use of speech, signs, symbols, dates, numbers, and colors. That gets back to what I said about Manly P. Hall. Once people learn the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men and women. That's he just said, man. So, but the whole thing is this: once your eyes are open to these kind of things, you just can't go back to sleep. It's like believing in Santa Claus, and once you realize Santa Claus is not real, you never go back to believing in Santa Claus. It's impossible. It's the same thing with being awake with many of these things. Here's an interesting thing, Lindsay, too. I'm not going to go on too much longer about this because there's many. I can go on forever.
Yeah.
like by myself, which I don't want to do. I want to have a conversation. But a very important aspect is there's this movie with Michael Douglas. It's called The Game, that was released in 1997.
Yeah. Is this the one where? Okay, keep going. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
There's one. He's talking to this man at a desk. He's talking about, what's your company about? He goes, it's a game. He goes, a game. He doesn't understand this. Like this world's like a big game. And then he goes on to this is during the trailer. He goes on to quote a Bible verse where it states, "Once I was blind, now I can see." And when he says that, what happens? A car pulls up. And what does it do? It spotlights a license plate. And if you put the numbers and letters in a license plate, it's 33. So literally, once I was blind, now I can see, and the 33 is there coded. So this is huge, and I should really emphasize why that 33 is so important. I shouldn't deviate from that. If I mentioned it earlier, I apologize, but it represents the 1/3 of the fallen stars or fallen angels.
I never knew that. There's all these 33 suggestions. I never knew that it.
So that's why Hollywood, you have the pavement with all these stars. That represents the stars that fell from the sky. That's why they're really big into stars. Like wrestling, they're not called wrestlers anymore. They're called superstars. So these celebrities, these idols are stars, like false stars, they're basically, idols. Huge aspect is Hollywood. We're always given false meanings for everything. We're told, the reason it's named Hollywood is because there was a grove of holly trees in that area. False. It goes back to ancient Europe, where the Druids, they made magic wands out of the holly tree. So that's how you get Hollywood. It's witchcraft. So you have like Bewitched. You have series based on witches, good witches, bad witches, like good angels, bad angels type of thing. But it's all occultic, and occult just means the hidden, and that's what it comes down to. And one thing I would really want to emphasize with a lot of things in this world, people look at things as bad. Like they'll look at the number 777, that means bad.
Yeah.
When in reality, there's the good side.
Yeah.
And there's the bad side. So it's like a knife. A knife can be used to stab someone. It can also be used to free a whale from a net.
Yeah.
It's the duality aspect. So I don't want to go in too long because I want to, like I said, keep it a conversation. But there's just so much that people need to really analyze.
Yeah.
And with what I'm saying is people once again, this is key. Once people really analyze things, and that gets back to Manly P. Hall. And with that quote I said about symbolism,
Yeah.
he also has another very famous quote when it comes to Freemasons. Anyways, um, wisdom is not seeing things; it's seeing through things.
Hmm.
So these are very key aspects of this world, and huge, huge, huge. I can't emphasize enough, and I'll keep saying like a broken record. It's symbolism.
Yeah.
People need to understand that. Look at things when they present symbols. For example, you watch like music videos, like by Korn, and there's this one song where where you see like they're underneath this dome structure, and it starts to crumble. Like that's literally the firmament breaking, coming down. When you watch The Simpsons and Homer hits a home run and it hits the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
when Hillary talks about the glass ceiling, this is not just pulled out of thin air. It's supposedly there's the esoteric and the exoteric meaning.
Yeah.
The exoteric meaning is it just means women achieving things in society, but the esoteric meaning means only for the occultist. It's the biblical dome, the firmament, the glass ceiling, which is mentioned in the Bible.
It's like they have to reinforce it over and over again in all of these ways and like dig it deeper and deeper into our psyches. And I was reading the Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne, who's been on the show a couple times recently, and he's talking about, where writing first came from was from Enoch, and Enoch there's a good Enoch and a bad Enoch, basically. There's like the good Enoch that everyone kind of knows about, and then there's like the bad one that no one really knows about. And he's actually the one that introduced writing and turned it into this like symbolic, writing is symbolic, but back then it was literally symbols like hieroglyphs or whatnot, and then turned that into the way to sort of hide knowledge. If you're speaking, like you can't really like hide a lot. You just like say you can, but it's like a lot harder. But if you're writing, you can put like multiple layers into something. And it was just interesting to me that like this symbolism is literally language and writing, which is literally the way that we are deceived, even though we see it as this like beautiful tool. I mean, I'm a writer and I love words, but I always acknowledge too like how they can be manipulated. I guess like any tool, like we were just talking about, it can be for good or for bad, but it seems like it was originally intended for bad, like to hide things from people.
Yes, absolutely. That's the thing about symbols, and that gets back to Albert Pike, who was the most powerful Freemason in U.S. history. Basically, the creator of the KKK, a Southern general. He was buried actually in D.C. He was the only like Southern, anything during the so-called Civil War buried in D.C. There's a lot of interesting things he says with his book Morals and Dogma. He talks about symbolism as well, and he talks about how lower level Masons, he talks about how all religions are about deception, and he basically talks about Masonry too, and how lower level Masons are deceived intentionally to keep them away from the truth. They're given false meanings to the signs and symbols to keep them away from the truth. So even Masons deceive their own.
That makes sense to me, because there's so many Masons that are like, I don't know what you guys are all tripping about. I'm a good person. Like this just means this. You guys are reading way too much into this. And I'm like, well, that's what you think. That doesn't mean that that's what's true.
Well, I've talked to Masons in my own life, and some get offended. There's some are like, you know what? I'm a 32-degree Mason, and they tell me things like, I'll never look at Masonry the same way after watching your presentations. So that's because I look deeper. I look deeper than what they're told. I've never been one to like, okay, this is what the teacher says, and of course a teacher
just
always knows more. You being a teacher,
walk away. Yeah.
Yeah. But you being a teacher, for example, you cannot lay everything out on the students, right off the bat. I'm not saying it's about deception. I'm just giving an analogy of you know a lot. You know what you want to basically through say a semester, whatever. You're going to lay out exactly what you want to teach day by day and work your way into it. But their intention, literally, just giving you what you need to know, giving false explanation for signs and symbols, and that's what it comes down to. And then at the highest level, you're told, listen, the things we taught you, false. These are the real meanings of it. But the big key thing about Masonry is this. These people at the local lodges, they have no idea about. Now, they're not privy to that information about Sandy Hook or any of these things. I do at the same time believe, like police chiefs and pastors and preachers at the churches, they come to the lodges, but they're still, on the big scheme of things, they're at a lower level They're still Masons. They still took the oath, but they're not going to be privy to a lot of things going on the top. It's like the old saying: if you want to keep a secret between like three people, you kill two. You know, and that type of thing. So at least the amount of people need to know. And you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lindsay. We're supposed to talk about coronavirus.
Oh yeah, that's so funny. We both just like wandered
here.
off.
Yeah, and I tend to do that, but
me too.
But yeah, I definitely want to cover that. That's such a hot topic. And here's the thing: is Lindsay, how it ties into Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, how does it tie into Kobe
and
Bryant?
People are gonna be like, "What the hell is this guy RussianVids talking? What is he lost his mind?" No, there's gonna be. I'm gonna set this up first. Kobe Bryant, okay, Kobe Bryant, in the coronavirus. A corona, the meaning of corona is crown or wreath. Just like the UN logo, when you look at the UN logo, it's just like the World Health Organization. They have that wreath, which is a corona or crown. Here's the thing is, you have the corona outbreak. Guess where Kobe Bryant was buried? He was buried in Corona del Mar in a supposed private funeral.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is, I'm going to talk about Kobe a little bit before I get into Corona, but there's a major aspect of his supposed helicopter crash. And it's going to be like going down a path where people really have to hear it out, because it's going to be like, oh, you think everything is fake. Well, literally, these world events are staged. The world is a stage. And this is a huge thing. Of course, everybody's seen it, or they should have seen it, is all like the cartoon with Kobe Bryant supposedly dying from a helicopter crash that explodes. There's a commercial where he throws a basketball and the helicopter blows up. But here's a major aspect in the real world. Forget the cartoon predictive programming for a second, which is relevant. But here's something huge: the smoke from the helicopter, and people have confirmed this. Like I had people that are firefighters, reserve firefighters, full-time firefighters, comment on my videos and you tell me I'm correct. Because I pointed out a real helicopter crash that happened last year to Kobe's. Huge difference is one is pure black smoke, one is pure white. And when you have black smoke that represents you're burning like plastics, rubber, foam, like I said, wiring, the fuel itself, it's going to be pure black. And here's the thing is, I have footage of Kobe's and it's pure white. And someone in the military contacted me as well saying those are military grade canisters that are used. And this thing is this too. There's two in this one clip shown by the mainstream outlets. There's smoke coming from two places. It's like literally two canisters. It doesn't mean they didn't incinerate and light at something to create like a little bit of fire, but literally there's no fire that's beyond that supposed crash site.
Wow.
So it's literally contained in a very limited area.
Yeah.
And getting back to all this things with Kobe, and in that one basketball commercial, he goes, "Legends never die," with a big smile on his face and giving like little hints. Like literally, literally before, I mean, we're going to get a corona, but I should really set it up because I'm talking about a fake death here.
Yeah.
You know, basically what it comes down to, these celebrities, here's something very in common. They all die out of nowhere, and that's for shock value. So you have, for example, David Bowie, out of nowhere, dies.
Yeah.
Alan Rickman, out of nowhere, dies. You have Joan Rivers, out of nowhere, dies. Michael Jackson, George Michael, Robin Williams. I mean, the list goes on. And why? Because if you know they're lying on their deathbed, people are prepared. So they like the shock value aspect. But here's going to make some connections. Like, for example, with Robin Williams, of course, everybody should know there's a Family Guy episode that aired in BBC 3. Literally, in the episode, he supposedly attempts suicide. Within minutes, he supposedly really commits suicide. And this is like some amazing coincidence.
Yeah.
This is some amazing coincidence. There's a scene like with getting to Joan Rivers and Melissa. Melissa acted so too happy, talking about her mom passing away. there's an episode of like her like in a hospital, the scene with the Simpsons, and like and death on her deathbed type of thing, and she's just gone, and they try to like the world being a stage to try to tie it in like, oh, Joan Rivers was killed because she called Michelle Obama a tranny. So,
Right.
but in reality, it's just part of the script. They're all working together. They're all like, it's like a movie scene. It's like they're not the only enemies in the world stage, but in reality, they're all working together type of thing.
Yeah. Which is interesting to think about because you kind of get caught up in like, oh, why would they do this to one of their own? Why would they put OJ through all that? Why would they put him in jail or whatever? And it's like, none of it's real.
Well, the thing is this, and I always never let other truthers dictate what I believe, and that gets to, we'll get into, like I said, we'll get back to Corona, but like cloning, I always said it's just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
There's no proof of these cloning factors.
True.
Eminem, he has I know, people say like this, people are supposed truthers. I know for a fact they have a cloning factory somewhere. I'm like, well, where's your evidence of that? All it is simply they have lookalikes, doubles. Maybe they have appearances. They don't want to fly around. They might have doubles or lookalikes. But as far as a cloning factory, the only clone you can do is from birth. And you're not going to clone, like, say, for example, you have a cloning factory. You're not going to clone an identical Eminem, same size, same height,
same age.
What's that?
Same age.
Yeah, same age. You can't. It's just fantasy.
Impossible.
This is the thing is, Lindsay and everybody else listening in, sometimes a lot of things I say are not sexy. Like the old saying goes, the fantasy is better than the reality, so they get sucked into things that sound cool, like cloning. It's just another aspect of a red herring, and even Madonna said in an interview that she has like 3 or 4 doubles for protection. Like this has nothing to do with cloning, just random things I remember like during interviews and that she would say, and like that makes perfect sense. And getting lookalikes and that makes more sense to it. But getting back to celebrity deaths, like here's a huge one. Is David Bowie. After he supposedly passed away, the same time frame, literally 2 days before he released a Black Star.
Yeah.
A man named Jack Stevens shows up in the Sky News TV in UK.
Yes. He looks exactly like him.
Yes.
You can't tell them apart.
Literally, it's the most ridiculous disguise you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he talks about, here's a big thing. He talks about, I really... it really hit me hard when John Lennon passed away, when Elvis passed away, but this one really hit me really hard. It's just, and don't forget, David Bowie's an actor.
Yeah.
He's been in movies. He's been in movies for years. So literally they have David Bowie on the big screen. He's looking at himself type of thing. And then he's talking about, Jack Stevens supposedly talking about David Bowie. He goes, and he goes, he, like he makes a mistake talking about himself.
Wow.
He goes from I to he. And then the news reporter in Sky News says, don't you think he like this is all pre-planned? Don't you think this is all pre-planned? And that gets back to Angie Boy, who said on The View that I think he staged his passing rather well. And Elton John said the same thing too.
What the hell?
How he just staged his death. So it's like this. Nothing's hidden.
Yeah.
It's just you have to have good discernment to see through it all.
You have to actually listen and actually pay attention, so you're not just like doing that thing where you fill in the blanks with what you expect or whatever. But
yeah, and that's the whole thing is, and this is the thing, and I'm being very honest, Lindsay, and everybody else listening in, is people say, well, then where are they? And I tell them the truth. I don't know. I don't have that evidence, so I can't go there. But I'll say this: more than likely, I have a theory. They're more than likely there's a nice chunk of land set aside for them. But where they go, I'm not going to say, like, I hate to say this, not to offend my own viewers. They're all screaming in the chat box, oh, they're in Antarctica. I'm like, you have no evidence they're being sent there. We don't know. Please do not just make up things. As far as that's concerned, I can through my, looking at things deeply. I know they're staging these, but I can't say where they go because I don't have the evidence for that.
Yeah.
I have evidence of fake deaths. I don't have evidence of where they go. So that's one thing I'm very, very key on is we just can't pull things out of thin air. It's okay to say, I believe they went to Antarctica, but do not say,
they did.
oh, they're in Antarctica.
Yeah.
That's what was the proof. This is the problem with so-called conspiracy theorists. You gotta stick to what you can prove, and then it's okay to say, I believe it might be here, but do not say, "Oh, they're in Antarctica."
Yeah.
Now you got to now you paint yourself in a corner. You can't prove that, So I'm very careful in the way I go about things and present things. It's very, very important. But getting back to Corona, I apologize.
Coronavirus.
Yeah,
That's
because
funny.
there's so much to cover. But yeah, getting back to Corona, and again, there's always predictive programming. And I'm sorry, I'm going to deviate here just a little bit before I hit Corona, and it's going to all tie in. They always give us predictive programming when it comes in book form, some type of media, books or movies. So that goes back to the Titanic. Now remember this. This is very key.
That shit
Movies,
was fucked.
I'm sorry?
The thing about the Titanic, and there was a book written about it before it actually sunk, but it was called the Gigantor or something like.
The Titan.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, something really similar, and the exact same scenario.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is they always reinforce their lies through history with movies.
Which is
so there's been movies on Titanic. Now I'm gonna get back to Corona, but I really need to set this up. They made 3 movies on Alcatraz, and guess what? We'll get into Alcatraz, but I'll just give you one little hint. I lived in San Francisco. There's 49 piers that, there's boats that leave the pier that all can lead to Alcatraz. And this is not the closest pier. Guess which pier number leads to the Alcatraz tours?
33.
Yep. Yeah. And it goes much deeper. I'll just say it right now. It's going to be concise. Like I said, they made 3 movies on Alcatraz. Clint Eastwood movie, the TV movie, the movie that was released in the late 90s called The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Referring to Alcatraz. Here's the thing is, this is a maximum security prison. I've been there several times, living in the area. I investigate things. I look at things very, very closely. Again, maximum security prison. How are you going to sneak in a vacuum motor, raincoats, paint brushes, human hair, all these items into this cell? Now, even if somehow you could, now here's a major obstacle. They supposedly build all these mannequin heads. They construct this drill from a vacuum motor somehow. And here's the problem. There's no electrical plugs anywhere in those cells. So here's the official thing. I've read it from the released so-called FBI files that were, some things are censored, but one thing they did say is they literally drilled through the ventilation on the sides around it to break free, to get through. They use knives, they use forks, knives, and they use the drill to get through the rebar on one case. But the bottom line is there's no electrical outlets. So right there, here's the thing is the police that were sent to investigate, look for Frank Morris and the England brothers, guess what? They're sent on a wild goose chase because there's no escape. There's no escape. It was just, why would they fake this? This is part of the world stage. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like $40 a head for each tourist. So they're literally, through their scripted reality that we're living in, these staged events, they're doing is killing multiple birds with one stone. They're creating this illusion that's everybody's so infatuated with. They're also making a ton of money off this, and just basically, like I said, it's the same thing with reinforcing the lies with like Apollo 11, the Trap 33 miners. If they make a movie based on a so-called true story, especially when they say based on a true story, it's a lie. And it's not in every case, but they'll take some things and maybe twist it. But for example, like Natalie Holloway, and there's so many. I don't want to talk about this topic. It's really not a pretty thing, but there's a lot of murders, a lot of bad things that happen in this world. Why do they spotlight this one?
Yeah. I always wonder that too. I'm like, why do they choose just this one? There's like a billion, and we're still after years and years, we're still obsessed with that one, like Jean Benet or Natalie Holloway or.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We'll definitely get back to Corona, but this is key. It's like it was in Aruba in Orange Town. Oh. The Orange being 33. You had that Vandersloot character who's giving the supposed confession to Cav. It's all filmed. We don't have evidence of any of this going down. Yeah. We're just told this stuff, and supposedly he ends up in Peru, and pulls off the same thing with the proving woman. So what I'm getting at is they don't look for news stories. How can I? This is the best analogy I can give. It's like divorce court on TV. There's
Yeah.
millions of real divorces, but all they present are on TV are fake ones made
Fake
for TV
ones. Yeah.
that fit the timeline. They can script. It's like a reality show. They have to stage them because people are just, if you do a reality show, most people are just lying on their couch, watching TV. Nothing really exciting is happening.
Yeah.
So there's fake, like fights between like roommates. They just make it dramatic. This person did this. So it's just the same concept of, when you stage things, you can control it, and that's what it comes down to. So there's just so much of that. But getting back to the Titanic, I deviated from that.
And the coronavirus.
In the coronavirus, yes, and I really jump around a lot. There's just so much to cover.
It's totally fine.
Yeah,
I
here's
love
the
it.
thing is, this is a real huge factor in this world stage. Of course, they made a movie about the Titanic. Now, getting back to the book, this is very important key before even getting into the book. There was a Titanic, and there was a sister ship called the Olympic. They built two.
Right.
And it's complex, but what it comes down to is there's a reason they did that, and I'm going to explain why. And we'll get to the comparisons. So you have the Titanic, which was written in 1898, okay, and you have the Titan that was written in 1898. Then you had the actual ship, the Titanic, just the icy. That's the only difference between the Titan and Titanic, of course.
Yeah.
So what it sunk was at 1912. Here's the thing is, they both were supposedly hit by an iceberg on the starboard side.
Yeah.
They both sunk near midnight. Both sunk in April. All these things, both supposedly unsinkable. So everything is parallel. So it's where supposedly fiction becomes reality when they're both fiction.
Yeah.
We have no evidence of this actually happening. They might go down like, oh, here's the bomb, here's the Titanic. Many ships have sunk throughout history.
True.
So we can't verify if that's the actual thing. But here's the thing is, the supposed sister ship, which is identical, called the Olympic, was actually used, and there's photos of it in New York Harbor. We're told there's a sister ship. I've never seen it myself. But they have supposed, like paintings, whatever. Supposed, I'm not saying, they could be real, them side by side. But here's the big thing is you have the sister ship, the Olympic, that was used as a cruise liner, coming back and forth, going back and forth between Europe and the U.S. All it was the Titanic. That's all it was. So it's like they purposely set this up. And again, it goes back in time to William Shakespeare, all the world's a stage. And this is like a big movie, a big play taking place. So all these things that are taking place, like for example, we'll get to coronavirus, I promise, but I want to mention the tie-in with the world being a stage with John Wilkes Booth and JFK. We know all the connections.
Yeah, that's like goes back and forth a million times, right? I mean, it's like down to like details that don't even make sense.
Yeah, like they're both like certain events, like they're both. I don't have the information in front of me, and I apologize. Like they both were elected for positions in 1860. I'm sorry, one was 1860, one was of course a 1960. So you had the 60 in both cases.
Yeah.
Both shot in public.
Both by the three named. Like,
three names.
Yeah.
We know about the cars.
There's something about their both of their secretaries. They had like the opposite name or something.
Yeah, Lincoln. But that one's a little bit of embellishment because it's true. But one was actually a secretary. The other one was like Lincoln's wasn't a secretary. It was like how would you say it? Like an assistant type of thing. He was like a male assistant, but you can almost say secretary. So it's a little bit of gray area. But what I'm getting at is it was factual that they both had a person in position. One for Kennedy, one for Lincoln with the opposite name.
Yeah.
And a huge thing is they were both succeeded by a man with the last name Johnson, which people could say is a common name, but when you add it all together,
it's all of it at once.
But here's the big thing is, and this is really gonna be uncomfortable for a lot of people because it's gonna be like, wow, this guy's really going in the deep end here. But it's once people hear it, and this is planting a seed because people are gonna reject it when I tell them this. No one's gonna get this right when I tell them. Even JFK, supposedly being a hero, he wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, he was just like all previous presidents. They're just, basically actors in the world stage. We have to remember that footage on Elm Street, like the Nightmare on Elm Street, which came out later. That's another subconscious seed about JFK. Remember, there's a splice at the very beginning of that convoy going down Elm Street. There's a splice where you see the motorcade come down, and all of a sudden there's a splice, and all of a sudden you see police motorcycles. So there's manipulation right there.
Weird.
That's the first key. Now, another huge aspect are the shadows, the timing of the shadows, like people in the streets waiting for the motorcade. And here's a big aspect. When you look at the people behind the motorcade, when it passes through by the grassy knoll and the grass area in the back, you see people looking in the wrong direction. You see like a mother and father holding hands with a child. You see a guy jump out of nowhere at a time that makes absolutely no sense. Like he just jumps. What we're seeing is layers of footage. And by the way, why aren't there any security back there with all these people in the background in that grassy knoll area? You have the President of the United States. He's going through the street. There's absolutely no security there. When I'm getting it, that was all layered footage in the back.
Wow.
That was all manipulation. Now, the big key thing here is who filmed all this? We all know who this is. It's Abraham Zapruder.
Yeah.
Who was Abraham Zapruder? Oh. He was a third degree Freemason. So
how convenient.
Has all this footage. It's a Freemason. I have photos of JFK giving Masonic handshakes to Richard Nixon and many other politicians. So, remember, he's the same one pushing the moon landing before the end of the decade, which is complete nonsense. So to believe he was some type of hero when he's pushing the narrative that, that they're pushing, and the first time people say, oh, but, he's going against the government. That's a clever deception.
Yeah.
The first time he went off course, they would have yanked him. They would have gave him the hook. They would have eliminated him. So that's the key thing to remember.
They don't let people go off script.
Yes, he went off script. If he did really, here's a big thing to remember. This supposedly happened on November 22nd. November being the 11th month of the year, and 22 is 33. So there's a lot of connection. And Kennedy, here's the big thing is, Kennedy's a 33 name as well.
Huh.
So, he has a Kennedy numerology. And remember, you have Johnson, you have Johnson, Kennedy. They're both 33 names. Now that ties in, I'm really deviating here, but that ties into NASA, where in Houston, they have two space centers. You have Houston, it's the Johnson Space Center, then you have the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Here's the big thing. It's only one runway, and the runway is number 33 for NASA.
Like, why? They can't even explain that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing is, it's like, they're obsessed with this number 33.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting back to Kennedy, this is going to be a really, really hard pill to swallow for many, because was it Jackie? Was it Lee Oswald?
Yeah.
And Lee Oswald being a 33 name. Was the cop from the National. Here's a big thing. People need to really analyze this and really consider this. Look at Kennedy's head. It literally explodes. Heads do not explode outwards.
Yeah.
They don't explode outwards like that. This is kind of graphic, but I seen footage like on this one YouTube channel. It's called Police Activity. I seen a cop literally shoot a guy in the head. It's kind of like obscured, but the head doesn't explode.
It just kind of like caves.
Yes.
It's like a melon or something. Yeah,
yes.
It's disgusting.
So it's literally exploded outwards, and that's a huge thing too. So it's a really, like I said, this is something that we have to as someone such as myself who speaks a lot of truth and investigates a lot of things. I didn't get it in one day. This is a very uncomfortable thing because I thought years ago this was a conspiracy, but it was done by Oswald or a cop or what happened?
Right.
It's just like Sandy Hook. Was it the guy in the forest or was it Adam Lanza? Was it none of the above? These are
Yeah.
hoaxes. So this one is really tough, a large pill to swallow for those that are new to it.
Or
And
for those who have this strong emotional attachment, which is the same with Sandy Hook. It's the same with the moon landing. It's like people who are very emotionally attached to a certain narrative of it. Like it's just really hard to question any of that.
absolutely. And that's the thing is, and here's a big thing that ties into Donald Trump, where at the time, remember, Kennedy was talking about Freemasonry without saying Freemasonry. He goes, he's against secret societies.
Yeah.
Remember that? But that was like to make him appear like he's against them. But here's the thing is, remember when Donald Trump, when he first announced he's running for president, so-called running for president, you had not him say it, but you had Newt Gingrich appear on Fox News saying, oh, Trump's different than the rest. He's a real black sheep. He's not like all the former presidents that took part of the initiation and the rites. So they're really, they're really pushing. Yeah, and I played that clip because I told people a long time ago that were like Trump supporters. He's different. He's going to come in and clean up house. He's going to stop the hoax. I said, you people are dead asleep. But what I'm getting at is that's the deception, saying he's not part of them when he is.
Yeah.
He is one of them.
It's the same game to get you all caught up in the hope.
Yeah.
The hope porn, yeah.
Here's the thing is, we'll get back to Trump, but here's the trick they play to pacify the public. Every 4 years, someone new to come along and give us hope. So we're not gonna revolt because someone else can come along and really change things.
Yeah.
So every 4 years, that false hope, and nothing really changes. But getting back to Trump, he's like one of the most overtly Masonic presidents. He literally puts an orange type of makeup on his face. He's
by the
way,
he's within miles of me right now. He's in my town right now in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, I remember you said that. And he's literally wearing the number 33 on his face, as ridiculous as it sounds, when he has the orange hue to his face.
Yeah.
So,
because why would you paint your face orange? I don't even get the point of it.
Well, here's the thing: is like, it's very key for people to understand this. For example, symbolism with these huge companies like Citibank. Citibank in numerology is 33. Here's a big thing. I remember seeing Citibank's cover on their website, and it was a young girl, and she had an orange peel in her mouth, smiling, showing the orange peel. This is symbolic. And guess what, too? Citibank has Orange Friday, like celebrations. They had this thing where they would do promotions on Orange Friday. So this is all symbolic, and all these big banks with the occult, like there's the Frost Bank in Austin, Texas. It's shaped like an owl. Owl, of course, represents wisdom. This symbolic. It's everything symbolic. For example, the Bank of America building in Houston, Texas. It's basically 3 pyramids, and it's like an orange color. So these occultists that run this world, they're huge. Like you look at something like so simple that we should all know, like Steve Jobs with Apple. He has the bite of the apple. Well, of course, that's the Garden of Eden. And people just don't make that simple connection.
Yeah.
Well, people say, well, that's just assumption. Well, I just don't work off one piece of information, because the very first Apple computer was priced at $666.66.
Jesus.
Yeah. And here's a big thing, even going further. So I never stop at one thing. Our whole system of computers, there's bytes.
True.
As in biting out of an apple, and there's rams. The ram is a horned deity with the occultists. They love their, like with the NFL, they have the LA Rams. They love any, like in Texas, they have the cattle with the Texas, was it Texas University or
like the pronghorns or something. Yeah,
and they have the hook'em horns. And they say, oh, it has something to do with Satanism. Well, they love the horned deities. Anything with horns, any reason to, like, for example, San Diego State, they have the anteaters, and they shape their hands just like the hook'em horns, like devil horns. So they're always giving us these false meanings in these universities and colleges. Well, remember, they're teaching evolution in these schools. So it's not the people that are teaching now, it's the ones that established these school systems of atheism. So I'm really deviating, getting away from
coronavirus. We've tried to come back to it like 12 times.
But I was talking about the horns, and what was I talking about earlier? I'm sorry, I was talking about specifically the horns with what was I just talking about, Lindsay? I apologize. I was talking about before I mentioned the horns with Texas and with San Diego State. What were we talking about earlier? I lost my train of thought there. We're talking about before we got into all this.
I'm trying to remember now too.
Yeah,
All I can remember is the
going on
sports
about too many
teams,
things.
but
We can get back into it. No, we're talking about the banks and the symbolism,
right.
and all the occult symbolism with so many things. Like I said earlier about Bank of America and the dual stripes. There's a set of 3 of dual stripes. It's 11, 11, 11, 33. It's like Kmart. K is an 11, so it's like 11 mark, and basically it's the symbolism where again letters into numbers. And this is a big thing. But anyways, let's get into Corona before, I keep deviating from Corona. It's like I'm trying to avoid it.
Well, you're making me think too. I'm like all of the major industries that are sort of the trap created around us, the cage that we find ourselves in, are the ones that you're kind of focusing on, like banking and education and where else were like the poisons in our food and all of this stuff is where they like to leave their marks and like to show you who's caging you, I guess.
Yeah, and one thing before we get into Corona, I'm deviating again, but very important, because I got to mention this with signs and symbols. If you ever look at the Arco logo, the Arco gas station, or the Reebok logo, it's literally a top view of a pyramid. Just take a look at these logos. Like it's like hidden in plain sight. So what happens is this: if you combined, like the Arco logo, if you literally imagine it as a 3D image, it's literally a pyramid, a top view of a pyramid. It's really hard to. You got to literally show it, and you got to see it with your own eyes. But all these symbols, again, there's just hidden meaning. Now, as far as coronavirus, again, this is we have to remember, we had SARS, we had the Ebola, so-called Ebola virus, and literally these things just fall off the map. They come and they go. And here's the thing is, how it all ties in with Ebola to the coronavirus. You had Bill Gates back in 2015 talk about how he foresees a global pandemic. He calls it a global pandemic, his words, and he foresees 33 million people dying. So coded.
So specific.
Yeah, but here's the thing is, now you have, this is back in 2015 with the Ebola thing that just dropped off the map. I should mention this too. You had, this was headline all over the world, where you had 2 American doctors, 1 American nurse, and 1 American journalist that contracted, supposedly, that all 4 contracted Ebola. Guess the age of each individual, and this is going to be just crazy.
33?
All 4 of them were 33 years old.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That's not even likely.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. These people are obsessed. They're obsessed. People say, I'm obsessed. No, I'm just reporting what I see.
Yeah. Well, I saw too in one of your videos that I was glancing through today that there was a lot of 33s around the coronavirus outbreak, and which reassures me, honestly. Because like I said, I've started with it's all hoax like everything else, and then I went sort of towards like, maybe not. Maybe we should be worried. And now I'm back to like, no, it's a hoax.
Yeah, here's the thing is, I tell people all the time, you put fear in people, you control them.
Yeah.
If fear is a huge weapon against anybody, the fear of anything, the fear of an earthquake, the fear of a hurricane, the fear of losing your house, the fear of many, many things. And this really controls people, and it alters your frame of mind. It alters how you conduct yourself as well through these phobias and fears. And that gets into Corona, where you had the Chinese doctor, and I'm going to get into plan names in a little bit, but after the coronavirus, his name is Li Weiying, like we lying, we're lying.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
wow.
his name is 33 numerology. He died at 33. I mean, here's what's funny about all these people that supposedly died. They're always taking selfies of themselves before they die.
Yeah, like that was the other thing. I'm like, who does this? Even if you think you're trying to like warn people or something, like that's not, I don't know.
Yeah,
and they don't look very sick either.
You had this one guy named William Smedley, who was on this Diamond Princess cruise, and diamond is a huge thing. That diamonds are 33 numerology.
Yeah.
So the use of diamond in symbolism. But here's the thing: is this man and his wife, and this is reported in the media in Pennsylvania. They're on their 33rd year anniversary when this happens, and the guy's like laugh, like has a big smile on his face, talking about contracting corona, and just talking about like it's no big deal. It's because I said a million times you can't fake real, and he's literally like, I'm just happy to be on TV. I'm gonna be famous. People are gonna see me. I'm getting paid. And they're going to tell, don't worry about smiling. No one's going to suspect anything.
Yeah.
They're just going to buy it anyways. So don't worry. If you crack a smile, you smirk, it's perfectly fine. So, and here's a big thing. Again, we talk about Titanic and the predictive programming with that. Well, here's a book by, what was his name? Dean Koontz, very famous author. Back in 1981, the book titled The Eyes of Darkness.
Yeah.
In that book, in China, in Wuhan, on the outskirts, they created this bioweapon. It was called the Wuhan 400. You got to be kidding me. Out of all the literally thousands, millions, whatever, cities, locations, and this is like a huge story that happens later, and it just, it only affects humans, this type of thing. But the thing is this, people get wrapped up in these things, it's like, I remember like one time I was at a bank, and after one of these outbreaks, I think it was SARS. I forgot which one it was. I think it was
There's
SARS.
so many to choose from.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just go away. But she was and she's like started a conversation with me about stuff, and then she goes, "By the way, I think I got it. I think I got it." People get so wrapped up and infatuated. Here's a huge thing: when there's a big story, there's something about people wanting to be involved. Like, I know someone that was there. I have a friend. I have a uncle. People just just flat out lie and say, "Oh, I know someone that works at the Twin Towers." Flat out lying, or just embellishing, or just flat out lying about these because it's a big story. They want to be part of it. Like, this is history. I want to be part of it. So that it's like amazing how many people tell me, "Oh, I know someone that died at Sandy Hook," or "I know someone that died at Boston."
You're like, well, now there has to be like 600 victims then, and there was only supposedly like 12 or whatever.
Or maybe 500,000 because what happened is like
you can't all know someone.
It's like a guy I know. He works in the San Francisco Bay Area. He goes, "Oh, be careful calling that a hoax." But I have a friend that said he knows someone that died there. I'm like, you're going by word of mouth, and like he's talking like it's real. I'm like, again, people embellishing. One time I got in a really heated, a long time ago, I got in a really heated argument with some guy that was really pushing Sandy Hook is real, or maybe Sandy Hook or Boston, one of the two. I forgot which one. He goes, "I know someone that died there, and they lost a family member, and they're on Facebook." I said, "Go ahead, tell them. I want to talk to that person. Who are they?
Please put me in contact with them. I would love this."
Yeah, and he didn't know I called him his bluff. Guess what? After that, he blocked me. See, I was calling him on his bluff.
It's really convenient in, I have a really nice group called Eyes Open where it's pretty safe, but in a lot of these like bigger groups there, you can go in and chat about these types of things. There's always someone who's going to jump on one of these things and say something like that. And one time in a larger group, I had said something about, I think it was Robin Williams. I don't know. It was one of the people who supposedly killed themselves by like sitting with the door knob attachment or whatever. And I'm like, I don't really buy it because your body like fights to stay alive, and you can lose consciousness and your body can still be active and subconscious motions could take place. So it just doesn't make sense to me that you could die this way. And I think it's a very strange way to promote or to say that someone committed suicide, and there's all these other ways that like would work for sure, but that way seems really sketchy. And this woman like messaged me and was like, it's really uncool that you're talking about this in public. First of all, it is a good way to kill yourself, and second of all, we don't want to talk about it in public because it'll encourage other people to try it and die. And every time we see these things, people talk about them, then there's more copycats or whatever. I'm like, well, what a convenient way to stop anybody from ever discovering what actually happened if we can't even talk about the fact that it might happen, or if it could happen, or how it could happen, because someone might kill themselves if we talk about it. It's like,
I don't let these people dictate anything to me. I said, who are you to dictate what I can say? It's like, we're really going to get off topic here, but it's like what's happened growing up in San Francisco. I was a big Giants fan growing up, and like there's 10-year anniversary with the Giants, and this one baseball player he's against, like they hired the first female coach, baseball coach, and she's gonna be in the locker room, this and this, and he was making a big deal over it, and basically, this guy that he's the president of the Giants said, we're not gonna have him invited for the anniversary because number one, we found that he posted this on Twitter. We found that very, offensive, and that's one thing, and that's fine, but I had a real issue with this, and not that I support Trump, but he goes, also he supports Trump. This is coming from the president of his political views is reason you're not going to be invited to this a celebration or anniversary because he's San Francisco being the most liberal
supposedly
cities. And one thing I want to say is, it's like the liberal capital of the world, and this is nothing offensive. Anybody's a homosexual, but this is the gay capital of the world. True. It's also the capital of basically where the Satanic Church started with Anton LaVey.
Really?
Anton LaVey.
And it's also the place California that's Street. Decaying now from feces and heroin needles and.
Yeah, and here's the thing: this is not even hidden. Where you have someone like Sammy Davis Jr. Visiting California, of course, the Satanic Church, and then actually having a ceremony in San Carlos, California. It's called the Circle Star. So there's a circle around the Star Theater, and there's pictures with Anton LaVey, and this is all online. These are real happening. It wasn't like, oh, there's all fake bullshit. No, he was a warlock and a well-known member of the Satanic Church, Sammy Davis Jr. And there's other ones involved in this as well, of course. But yeah, it's just a real crazy world. Talking about San Francisco, and there's the Bohemian Club there, and of course, just north is the Bohemian Grove, just north of San Francisco. So, and the Golden Gate. Here's a big thing: why is it called the Golden Gate? And when it's painted orange, you know the answer to that. It's 33. And guess what year it was built? 1933.
Of course.
So here's the thing is, you have the Golden Gate, and this is a reference going back to Egypt. You have the gold and silver gate. It's Egypt. It also goes back into, Rome and the Vatican with the gold and silver gate type of thing. So it's all occultic. But again, I'm deviating again from coronavirus.
Yeah.
But
we
these
can
are
connect anything.
I don't mind us going around, but definitely it's where I'm like all over the place. Coronavirus, like I said, just a fear campaign in the public, and that predictive programming from the book. Shortly, this will all disappear.
There was also the video game that I keep forgetting which one it is, but it's some outbreak video game where all humanity is becoming like zombie-like or whatever, and they had the corporation that like oversaw everything or that it came from was the Raccoon, I want to say, corporation, which if you rearrange it is Corona, and their logo is exactly the same as like that lab where the virus supposedly came from in Wuhan, and it's like too similar. The virus is killing all these people, and
there's like I said, there's so many connections. Like I said, Kobe, Baron, and Colonel Del Mar, and this is happening at the same time, same time frame. And here's a big thing: it's also coded COVID-19. Yeah. Well, COVID in Hebrew, guess what that is? COVID in Hebrew to English is Kobe.
No way.
Yeah, I'm not joking.
Dude,
Anybody can do this and look it up. That COVID is Kobe.
Wow.
So yeah, you can look up yourself, or anybody wants to do the translation. That's what it is. So they're definitely
Resident Evil
too.
Thank you. Sorry, it was Resident Evil was the game. That's crazy though.
Yeah. Very, very famous game. Yeah,
yes.
And here's something that might be someone might say this is a stretch. I don't think so. There's a movie with Will Smith called I Am Legend.
Yes.
And it was a movie about a breakout in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
And also there's a scene with a helicopter crash with Will Smith. His wife and his child died in that, but he lived, of course. But so it's he didn't die. So that's why people will say it's a stretch. But you had a movie with a helicopter crash and an outbreak.
Yeah.
In the same movie, is symbolic of literally they're planning all these events way in advance. And again, that gets back to 9/11, with 6 years to the day the Pentagon supposedly attacked with this 100-ton plane. We don't see literally over 200 seats. We don't see any luggage. We don't see any titanium steel engines anywhere. We don't see the wings. We don't see the tail section.
True.
We see nothing. The official story is a plane disintegrated. But here's the thing: here's the major conflict and the major thing about it is they said they were able to obtain the DNA from the hijackers. But how can you if the plane vaporized? So
it wasn't even just
literally
that plane either. It was those planes, the plane that supposedly attacked the Pentagon, and then the plane that supposedly went down in the field or whatever. All of them vaporized. All of them had like no trace except really strange like chunks of them that were still perfectly intact.
You know what's funny, Lindsay, is they had these two goofball like CIA guys like on the lawn of the Pentagon holding up plane parts.
Yeah.
And that's just for show. Like,
that was
look,
like
an actual plane crashed here and we're holding it.
Doesn't it remind you of that scene in Star Wars, or is it even Star Wars, or am I mixing it up with oh my god, now I can't remember the name of the movie that was fake with Spaceballs.
Yeah.
One of those, they're like holding up pieces of shit in the desert or whatever.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I love that movie,
of.
by the way. And they actually show some truth that we live in a contained system.
Yeah.
Where the Princess Vespa, she's like going through like the ferment type of thing. But it's a plant though, but like
the giant vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah, but I love that movie. That was hilarious.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, but like I said, regarding 9/11, and a lot of people might get offended by this, but they're not killing people at these events. They're literally not killing people, and they're using a lot of smoke and mirrors. Like they have actors all over the street. Like these two black guys are saying, "Oh, we saw 33 people jump. At least 33 people jump from the towers." Here's the thing: is
why that number?
This is huge that people need to remember. These towers were built to come down.
Yeah.
Before they were built, they were planning to come down before they've been built. A huge thing is this that people cannot deny is remember all the footage of the rescue workers supposedly in the towers. We don't see not one man in a business suit, not one female, nobody on that ground level exiting. All you see is people milling around, taking their sweet time. You don't see any panic. What I'm getting at is you don't see anybody running out of the towers. Yes, we see people running the streets. There's many businesses. This is a very highly densely populated, not populated, but it's a high density, area of New York, Manhattan. A lot of people there working in surrounding buildings.
Yeah.
And we don't see there's zero footage of anybody running out of the towers. Zero. Mm. So the rescue workers, you see them in there and nobody running out. So people talk about deaths, and what it comes down to is they, literally one tower came down after 45 minutes, another came down after an hour, So what I'm getting at is this: there's some debate if people died or not. If anybody died, it's from the towers coming down, and they can do a lot of CGI work with a lot of stuff, things that look real from a distance appear real, but remember all the just like they faked the planes. As far as this is concerned, people are like, if they're new to it, oh, that's absolutely absurd. Everybody that captured the footage of these so-called planes, they're all media. They're all part of the media.
Yeah.
Like a guy in Turkey, or is a guy in Bulgaria. Well, he works for the media in Bulgaria. All these people supposedly, and there's footage of absolutely no plane. So we know about September Clues with Simon Shack, where we see supposedly the nose of the plane going to the building. When you back it up, you keep backing it up. There's no plane. So all it was, when it comes to 9/11, it was a controlled demolition of 3 buildings with a huge fantasy story wrapped around it. This is like the biggest illusion here. People say, well, if these are demolitions, why do the buildings come from top down? Well, it was an unconventional controlled demolition where they knew with these 110-story buildings, if you take them down from the bottom, there could be major collateral damage to surrounding buildings, which they don't want damaged.
Yeah.
So they all came straight down. But here's the thing: you had building number 7 that came from top to bottom, and you don't need to do it. I'm sorry, it came down like a conventional demolition, not unlike the other ones. But you don't need to do the top to bottom one on that because it's only literally 47
shorter.
Stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just a free fall, and every aspect just came down. So again, when it comes to people, I'm asked all the time, we know this is a planned event. This was a controlled demolition. Um, and I said this to people: if anybody died, it's from people in the area. I don't want to say this, but like some old guy in a wheelchair that can't get out of the way in time. But if anybody died, it's from the buildings coming down. Those are
Yeah.
huge buildings. There's no denying it. If someone's around and they're going to get hit by that, they're going to be dead.
Or like maybe the dust is toxic or something like that.
Yeah, at a
Yeah.
later date. Yeah, but as far as these towers, again, there's zero footage of anybody running out, and that should be. There's film of a lot of things. We don't get that. We do not get that. And also to remember, there was like 50% vacancy several years prior to that. It was a money losing deal, but that was part of it too, to have a few amount of businesses in there, and just basically
The less, the
vacate.
better.
Yeah.
The
So it
easier.
wasn't, they can't completely shut it down. Then it'll be like, okay, what's going on here type of thing. So there was a minimal amount of business in there and a minimum amount of people, and a lot of strange things happening. Here's a big thing too, with of course a lot of things I've covered over the years. Back in 1990, you had Depeche Mode sing on top of the Twin Tower, one of the towers, and the song was called "Enjoy the Silence."
Wow.
And that's about Freemasonry again.
Oh, yeah.
The lyrics. Yeah, he does that in the video.
Wow.
But again, it's about the lyrics go, "Enjoy the silence," and the words are meaningless.
Yeah.
They only could do harm. It's like not
Unforgettable.
telling secrets. And there's also this. The one line is, "My little world comes crashing in." So these are all like symbolic type things, and there's so much particular programming. One thing I want to mention too is this was David Rockefeller was behind the Twin Towers, and this is all about the numbers. Where Rockefeller numerology is 110, and each of the towers was 110 stories. So they like synchronize all this when it comes down to it. And of course, in numerology, the zeros mean nothing. So you had two 11s. So it's 110, but you take away the zeros, they're basically 11s. The two 11s,
Yeah.
and building number 7 was 47 stories. So 4 and 7 is 11. So you get literally 11, 11, 11
Or
for 33. And of course, like I said, they all came down after 33 years after the North Tower construction started. People get mad. They're like, oh, but the towers were built. The actual, I'm like, no, I'm talking about the groundbreaking. I'm talking about the groundbreaking of the North Tower. That's the first building that went up. And I'm talking about the groundbreaking for the Pentagon. Both to the day. Well, one was to the year, and one was to the day when it comes to the Pentagon. And of course, the Pentagon is occultic.
Yeah.
You can fit into the pentagram within the Pentagon, of course, and that gets back to Washington D.C., where the city streets are built, and it's literally
The whole
upside down.
city's just built on this like esoteric grid or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: is people always get like, but no, it's not a complete pentagram, and that I say exactly. That gets back to Manly P. Hall when it comes to, and this gets a little bit on the spiritual side here, where he states in his writings that the broken pentagram, where one line does not meet, one converging line does not meet, this is called the devil's footprint or the devil's hoof, and this again gets a little bit out there for some people, but it's basically used by to summon demons for their own uses, for their own manipulation. This is from his own book, not what I'm saying. This is from Manly P. Hall, and anybody can look this up about the broken pentagram, and that gets to a lot of broken pentagrams in society. Look at the logo for like American Idol. It's literally a broken pentagram. Look at Lockheed Martin. It's a broken pentagram. There's this, and it's everywhere. A lot of news stations, they use the broken pentagram symbolism. The Astros, they have as a logo a broken pentagram, where it's not all the lines of the star do not converge. So yeah, it's again knowing about these signs and symbols and the deeper meaning of things. It's a crazy world. Just don't tell anybody it's crazy. They'll just call you crazy, you know.
Oh, I see what you're saying with the American Idol and the broken pentagram. Interesting.
It's like a cursive type.
Yeah.
Like what I'm getting at is this, but it's about not all lines converging to make a perfect star.
Yeah.
That's what it's really about. And if you Google in Manly P. Hall, broken pentagram, you'll break it down about one or more lines not converging to make a perfect star. That's why in American Idol, I said it's it's more like the lines doesn't converge. There's a little bit gray area with that, but for sure with the Astros, and again, it's about one or more lines not converging. And you can also look at Lockheed Martin too. I'm throwing a lot at you, Lindsay. I don't want you to.
No, I love it. It's weird what I pulled up for Manly P. Hall's broken pentagram had something to do with Comet Ping Pong, and that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's another one there.
Maybe we'll have to do that on another episode since we're going a little bit long. But that's fascinating about the broken pentagram. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and there's just so much, and there's just so much to cover, and just so little time. And sometimes I do this. I just deviate. I just talk about one thing and just drifts into another.
That's how I love to do this show the most. So where it's perfect, so we can just like talk about whatever comes up. But I'll do one more question from the chat if that's okay, and then we'll go into conclusions.
Sure thing.
Okay, so Oswald Spengler is asking what you think of Aaron Schwartz. That one was before I was, I think, even like questioning everything, and I definitely got sucked into the emotional drama of it.
Aaron Schwartz, refresh my memory on that because
he's the guy
I've covered so much.
He supposedly killed himself because he hacked like his the journal articles, scientific journal articles from, I don't know, JSTOR, one of these online journal article databases, and he freed them and gave them to anybody who wanted them and let them download them, and so they charged him with like, way too many counts of, I don't even know what that would be, theft, I guess, of intellectual property. And it was at this time where they were like charging all of these hacktivists with crimes to sort of crack down on it and, show that hackers wouldn't be tolerated. And so then he, was facing this life sentence for journal articles, and he killed himself. So I've never looked at it with a fresh sort of eye to these sorts of things, and so I'm not sure what I think about it, but it's a good question.
Yeah, a lot of these events, it's again, they push these type of events to like, and again, he supposedly hung himself.
Yeah.
And a lot of these events, they're out there, of course, to set a standard, what not to do.
Yeah.
Just like what's his name? And this is a psyop for sure, but there's another psyop with Julian Assange. He's another one, a supposed one of these supposed heroes.
Yeah.
And they always code these stories with the 33. Like they show Assange being arrested, and they show like one part of the building there's a 3. Then like when he's exiting or being escorted out by the police, they show a 3, and then like the camera views another 3 before they put them in. But yeah, this is another one they just they put out there to just create this type of craze of what to do, what not to do, and put fear in people to not go in this type of direction. So that's the same concept what they're doing. So yeah, they're manipulating us in every which way. And that gets back to a quote by Noam Chomsky about how the government spends billions of dollars to control the minds of the masses. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it at every angle. And here's something, Lindsay, I know we don't want to go on too much longer, but one thing I want to mention too is very, very key. It's not just these psyops. They're like people are dying or the fear thing, even the feel-good story. And I want to mention this, where there's this young boy they headlined this guy in NBC who supposedly lost both of his parents, and he's sad. He's living with his aunt, and he's sad about it, but he's trying to keep a smile. And he says his mission is to go around the country and give 33,000 hugs. That's his goal. And he's smiling the whole time. And
you're like, why that
number? This video had like 40 or 50 million views on YouTube. And so what I'm getting at is this: they're not only faking these trauma-based mind control stories, putting fear in people like Jeffrey Dahmer, this cannibals, always eating people, specifically black people. So it's like a divide, black and white. So they're not only creating these stories, they're creating the feel-good stories. So they're not going to just like, we're going to fabricate these terror events, these events. Even we're going to stage the feel-good stories. So they're not like we're going to cover this real one here and a fake one here.
Yeah.
When they're all controlled, contrived stories.
I've never considered that before, that the positive stories, the feel-good stories, would also be just as contrived. But it makes sense. I mean, you're controlling all aspects of our psyche, you know, from every angle you possibly can.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, the kid's in a room, and the walls are painted orange. He's wearing a Spider-Man glove on both hands while he's talking. And here's the thing is, again, the 33, Spider-Man in numerology, 33. So he's wearing two of them. You dual 33s. He's just a little actor, little actor. And really quick, because I know we got to get going, but it reminds me of that what happened in Tasmania, Australia with Martin Bryant and that so-called mass shooting. You know about that one?
This is the one that caused them to go into gun control mode?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And to make it really concise and brief, I know we're running short in time. He was a child actor. He was put on TV as part of a campaign, an anti-fireworks campaign. So he went from being on TV when he was younger to later on being part of another PSYOP, another event with the so-called shooting. So he was used on TV prior to that. But here's the big thing.
Weird.
He went to Newtown High School in Tasmania.
No way.
So you have the duality. Yeah. The duality of Newtown in Australia and Newtown in the U.S. So there's a lot of connections. And here's a big thing too. This is going to blow people away. You had this, it was called the Port Arthur Massacre. But guess what? Going back in time, there was another Port Arthur Massacre in China.
Was that the stabbing one?
Yes.
Okay.
So
weird.
We're told about this happen.
Yeah.
But here's the big thing, and I'll leave it at this, and you can continue on. But why do they say history repeats itself? Because the ones that control history love repeating it. They love repeating history. So they're literally telling us there's nothing new under the sun, and they're doing the same thing over and over to a different generation of people. And it's just a crazy world that and people call me nuts or crazy. Well, the thing is this: everything we're told is not reality based. It's just so when you're told everything you're told on TV, if people go by that, when they hear me, they'll say, "Oh, this guy's completely off his rocker,"
right.
not knowing they're the same people that believe in voting, same people believe in all these nonsense shootings, and I'm the crazy one.
Yeah,
we're questioning things. Yeah, so it's a very interesting, fascinating world. And like I said, once you're awake, there's no going back to sleep. Some of the things I've said here today are, even for people in truth, it's going to be hard to grasp. And it's about planting seeds. And this is really a lot of things I'm talking about, especially with JFK and flat earth, things like that. It's really advanced truth. I don't expect people to get it right off the bat. If they're new to it, just put it in your back pocket and look into it and get past the uncomfortableness of being, oh, you're a flat earther, you're so dumb, you believe the earth is flat. Getting past that emotional mind control, and you'll be free from this world system.
Yeah, because it's not, I mean, it's like you said, there's no reason to just reject anything outright, especially if it feels emotional. Maybe take some time until you can look at it without emotion is the best way you can view something. Because in the end, like we were saying earlier, it is like a spiritual battle that's going on. And so that's the most important thing that you could ever set your mind towards figuring out is your spiritual truth. And that's why this is so vital. And so I want to ask you if you have any sort of last thoughts and ideas. Obviously, also, where can people find you? RussianVids, it's pretty easy, I think, to find on YouTube. But is there anywhere else you want to direct people, projects you got going on, or anything else?
Yeah, definitely. I've been shadow banned. I've been shut down, like I said, so many times off YouTube. But I just keep popping up because it's like I might take a break for a while, but I always come back to it. But yeah, I mean, just look at RussianVids, and you're gonna find me there on YouTube if you dig hard enough. And as far as any projects, I did a documentary with this one Canadian-based journalist, and this is, I'll just say it, he's I'll just say it, he's worked with the Bill Gates Foundation, who I really despise Bill Gates.
Yep.
He's done some filming with Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I'm kind of person, I'm like, I'm confident what I said. He might take my our interview and twist it wherever he wants to do it, but I'm willing to speak to people on pretty much, not everybody, I shouldn't say that, but I'm willing to get the word out as far as truth.
Yeah.
The best I can. If someone tries to take my words and twist it, I'll do a podcast. I'll do a follow-up. Say this. Here's what really happened.
Set it straight. Yeah.
I
would have done the same thing.
Yeah. So I'm like, in the past, I'd be very super selective.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'd appear in Alex Jones, just tell him exactly my mind type of thing. Before I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to go in there because I know he's controlled. Now I'm like, I have a different mindset with that's concerned. But one thing I want to say too, I should mention, is as far as truth, always listen to everybody that has something, at least something solid to some type of base or something concrete when they try to present something or they present something, because I do understand if someone's pulling things out of thin air with no evidence based upon it, yes, that you can reject that. Yeah. But don't be a person like that you're trying to tell like people about 9/11 or the moon landing being fake, where they just shut you down. Well, when I present something that's new about JFK being a hoax, being an assassination being a hoax, you're in the same realm as those people rejecting, someone you're trying to talk about 9/11 with. You're in the same. So you don't want to be a hypocrite and like, well, I tried to tell my friend about 9/11 being a hoax, and they completely turned me, shut me down. Well, you're doing the same thing with me when I'm presenting new things. So you don't have to accept it, just hear it out. And then you can say, after hearing it all, after looking at yourself, you don't have to agree with it, but do not, as long as something's solid to it, just don't just throw it to the wayside, because you can lose a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to truth.
Absolutely. Well said and amen. Fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to RussianVids. RussianVids, it's been awesome to talk to you, and thank you so much for giving us so much of your time tonight.
No worries, Lindsay. I appreciate everybody listening in. Thank you so much as well for listening in.
Thank you. And just so you're not worried, as soon as I'm done, I will hang up on you abruptly. So I always forget to tell people that.
No, don't worry. I don't think it was like, oh, she had me on for this time and she's hung up on me.
Yeah, it's nothing personal.
No worries at all.
Awesome.
Worries, Lindsay. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Well, all we can do is all we can do. Never doubt your path, wherever it leads you. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, and you're doing exactly what you are supposed to do. And that can change and will change at any old time it wants, and it will be the best thing that ever happened by the end of it all. So until you find contentment with every aspect of where you've been, where you're at, and where you're going, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah. Good night.
It's a one-on-one lesson, so do your homework. Make your dome hurt while up on earth. My bones are blessed from holy dirt. Vibes manifested to words that told me search for verbs and adjectives to describe birth. Worth more than one can speak, while the tongue feeds a weak, a sour taste in your mouth, bittersweet. Words can also kill you when you sleep. Mind condition, low frequencies while the subconscious mind listens. I can tell a vision filled with lies disguised as truth, and spread it like the word to the youth. Watch the tube. A place where the God gets food is sorcery. To recreate the God forgery does more than meets the eye. Not too many know. Just hit me flow like the eye of Horus Penio. Yeah, not ready to leave until we believe we're free to go. You hear me? Run.
Sculpted from the ether, the material will eat ya. Stuck on this plane, lanes use jet fuel to greet ya. The dimensional three ain't beating me on top of the fourth. Didn't climb Jacob's ladder to squad with a sword. Forged with ink drizzle, branched down. Try quiet your lamps now. Ascension past the matter, let they slam out they damn mouths. We ain't on land now, but they under over understand. Sacrificing wisdom, hoard Spartan, dumber, kosher, wicked hands, putting faith in worthless worship of the mortals, artificial portals, mass ingestion of the black goo, bioengineered morsels, conversing with machine elves, bypassing maggots. They stuck on Android screens now. I'm scrolling emerald tablets, Moloch living lavish, off the backs of the savage. Them clasped hands at the Sabbath, smack of energy damage. They done twisted the tongues, put nanotech in the lungs. The awakening's begun. All they really can do is fucking
Run.